Welcome to Champion Motorsports iRacing Team Endurance Series event, the season finale, live from Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta. Hi, I'm your host, Taylor Burris, and joining me is my co-host, Joshua Lee, and our wonderful producer, Mr. Ryan Bauer. We are bringing you all the exciting storylines and events here for this inaugural season, and it's amazing to say that we have approached the season finale of the iRacing Team Endurance Series for Champion Motorsports. Joshua, welcome aboard for today's broadcast. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me on today's broadcast. I'm doing great, just watching practice and qualifying and seeing the teams that have been on top all season long still on top through qualifying and practice. No surprise, VRS Satellite Racing and Unified Performance Racing both on top in qualifying right now. Zero surprises there. They're the two champions of the two classes, but we have some good battles on the points heading down from each of those leads there, Taylor.
We certainly do, Joshua, and of course we also have some great partners to think about. We'll get more into today's stories with those championships as the race progresses, but we have to give a big shout out to some of our amazing partners.
Yes, we do. Our series is sponsored by these four terrific sim racing companies: Penguin RC, Grid Finder, and Complex SimWorks. You'll be hearing more about their products and services during the series, and Champion Motorsports is pleased to have them as sponsors for this terrific series.
As we take a look at the track here today, we are going to be at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta. This 2.5 mile, 12 turn circuit is, of course, been around in the world of motorsports for many years, and of course home to the famous Petit Le Mans in the IMSA Sports Car Series. And of course we'll be seeing a lot of great racing action here today for the championship season finale. It's a great way for this series with the LMP2s and GTE fields out on the track today. Of course, the race is going to be 150 minutes long. And of course, a rolling start here this morning with open setups, which means drivers can make adjustments to the needed setups that they need for today's race. Of course, again, the LMP2 is utilizing the Dallara-based chassis, while the GTE cars are utilizing the Corvette C8R, along with the Porsche 911, as well as the BMW M8, the Ferrari 488, as well. So pretty much street cars you would see out on the road every day when you're out on the road driving around town, Josh. So it's great to see once again sports car racing here on the iRacing service once again at this hallowed track, which just recently had an update.
It did just recently have an update here at Road Atlanta, and this is one of the most exciting tracks that you can race on the service. Fairly unique as well. You turn off into turn number one, go right into the S's that we're taking a look at right now, and then you head into some tight bends towards the back, a long straightaway. No lifting until you get down to the chicane, and then you're right back to the front straightaway. So a fairly simple track when you look at it just on the track map, but once you start to race here, elevation changes and other things on this race track will come up to bite you if you are not careful.
You certainly are, as we see one of the Longhorn Racing Ferraris out on track trying to get one last attempt of a qualifying. That's Larry Ford right now. He currently sits in the 11th spot in class with a 118.651 as his best time. But right now, as he approaches that long back straightaway here, it looks like he's slowing down. I think it's safe to say his run will be done for qualifying. But Josh, one of the danger zones we have to keep an eye on is going to be going through the S's and coming over towards turn 5. We've seen a lot of action happen through there in previous sports car racing events here. What are some other points we should keep an eye on before we go through the grid?
I think a lot of it is going to be traffic. We are in endurance racing after all. You might run into a bit of traffic ahead, and the dirty air is going to be in effect as well, heading through those S's, and trying to just keep the power down there as well can become very difficult, especially as runs go on.
Certainly will be the case right now as qualifying has come to a close, and we will give you the full field rundown or your starting lineup for the season finale here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. The VRS Satellite Racing Team takes another pole position with a 108.344, followed by TNT Racing Carbon. Imperial Motorsports Shake will be starting in third, followed by Pneumatic Motorsports Blue in fourth position. ADRA Endurance, a new team to the series this season, coming in the fifth spot, followed by the Craft Dinner Racing in sixth. Pneumatic Motorsports Purple will be coming in starting in 7th, with WWZ Red starting in 8th. Penguin RC Complex Simworks will be starting 9th, followed by the Hard Promise Racing in 10th position. 11th position will go to DDM Racing, followed by Rebellion Racing in the 12th position. Rounding out your 13-car LMP2 grid is the Jigster Racing. And Josh, what's the GTE field looking like?
Well, no surprise here. The points leader, Unified Performance Racing, sits on the pole there. Renault Alpine Racing in second. SimHQ Motorsports 2 in 16th place, third in class. Last Minute Racing and SimHQ Motorsports 3 round out your top 5 for the GTE field. Can-Am Canucks, Team Break Fade, NGP Motorsports, Triple R Racing, Can-Am Express, Longhorn Racing, Longhorn Racing Lone Star, All Balls Racing, MMTR, and Team VVL Systems round out your GTE field. 28 total cars, including that LMP2 field. Ready to go racing here at Road Atlanta.
We certainly are, as the field is going to be getting ready to be released to take the one pace lap field before we turn them loose for 150 minutes. Pace car is off in that Porsche 911 pace car that will pace the field here in a few moments to turn them loose. A lot of exciting things happening in the sports car world. Of course, for those who are a fan of the IMSA WeatherTech series, they are running at Mid-Ohio. And of course, these LMP2 cars are running at that track, along with those Halo GTE cars that are right behind in the secondary class coming up right behind. Of course, they do give a little bit of a gap for both fields, so that way there is no craziness going on as far as on the opening lap, especially when heading into turn 1 and 2 here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. And Joshua, I do got to say, if we can quickly get a quick look at the number 37 Unified Performance Racing Ferrari, it is finally a red Ferrari. It's been all season, but we finally get that red Ferrari. So Rachel, if you're watching on YouTube or Twitch or any of our streaming, it is finally red. We are finally have the team with a red Ferrari. We've been waiting all season, just Joshua, because it's been white, and we kind of been making a little bit of fun with them a little bit about that matter. But now they finally decided to listen to bring it on this last race of the season.
And it is a beautiful looking car and a fast one at that. Laid down the fastest time in qualifying to sit on the pole for GTE. As these drivers get ready to go, the nerves going to start to build, especially for those drivers that are fighting in the point standings. There's a tie for second place in GTE between SimHQ Motorsports 3 and 2, with Renault Alpine Racing not too far behind. And then you also have some tight battles. Imperial Motorsports trying to hold on for second place. They have a 5-point buffer over CMS Pro Summit team, and then a tie for fourth between Pneumatic Motorsports Purple and TNT Racing. A lot to talk about with the points. A downside from the top two, or the top drivers in each of the classes. Those are pretty much already set in stone, but we're getting ready to go racing, and we'll see where the rest of the point standings will fall out.
We certainly will, Josh, as the pace car will make that hard turn down pit road. We hope all of you who are tuning in today will enjoy all the storylines, all of the racing here as we get ready for green flag racing. The pace car is off, green flag is in the air, and we are underway for the season finale here at Michelin Road Atlanta. As they dive it down towards road turn number 1 right now, you see the VRS team of David Williams easily break out to a race lead over Everett Paddock in the TNT Racing Carbon. Your top 2, Pneumatic Motorsports Blue of Jason Lundy, follows in third. Let's go to the GTE field start.
GTE getting underway. They dive into one. United Performance Racing's Justin S. getting a great start. Jack Christie trying to get to this back bumper and get around him already. Top 5, it's Busicombe, Denny, and Lidke all rounding out your top 5 as we get going through the S's.
We have one car off. That's the 57 of Last Minute Racing's Mark Johnson in his BMW, trying to get things back going. He will continue on his way, but unfortunately, it's going to be a long road ahead of him as he is currently in last. You're on board with Jason Lundy of the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue in hot pursuit of Everett Paddock and that TNT Racing Carbon LMP2 as they work their way through the final couple of corners underneath the bridge as they approach turn number 11. Here for the first time, one lap is completed, and it's no surprise, Josh, VRS Satellite Racing back up at the front of the field.
Zero shock at all there, but the pole sitter VRS Satellite Racing will get a drive-through penalty for their jump start in Monza. So this lead is going to quickly go away in turn to the stewards for the series. So he's going to need to bring it down into the pit lane, serve that drive-through, and then get back on. Not going to hurt him too much point standing wise. Obviously in the race it'll hurt, but leading the points by roughly about 18 points, not going to be too much of a blow.
No, it certainly is not right now. They've won every single race since the start of this season earlier in actually 2020 when it started off here at Daytona. But now we're going to see how these drivers will do when an issue happens for one of the most dominant drivers. As you see, Christopher Pies go to the inside of Jason Lundy, side by side as they dive it down into turns 10A, 10B, give the position over to Christopher Pies.
Great move in the LMP2 field to take over that spot. Everybody in GTE currently sitting roughly about single file. No major battles going on back there just yet as they get going for their race here today. We'll look at Justin S. for Unified Performance Sim Racing, current leader on the racetrack as we go on board. Chasing down one of the LMP2 cars up in front, Matthew Overton for DDM Racing, a bit off the pace in his Dallara LMP2. Justin S going to try and catch up to him and see if he'll be held up or go right on by. Nobody else really battling in GTE at the moment. Everybody getting it set in and steady. This is a long race, 2.5 hours.
It certainly is. Take a look, though, at this battle right here for the 7th position. You have Triple R Racing's Leonard Burke trying to hold off the NGP Motorsports of Michael Ogren, who are right there as they're going through turns 3, now down through the S's before they approach turn number 5.
Rat contact further back. One car around into the grass, into the barrier. That looks to be the Larry Ford Longhorn Racing number 44.
Let's take a look at that here at the race replay. You'll see that 44 of Larry Ford trying to see if he can get around one of those BMWs. That's Ogren right behind him as they approach down through the S's. Does he make a mistake or was there a little bit of help? Yep, clips the grass and curbing right there, loops it around. Contact right there with one of the Can-Am Canucks before more contact with the outside wall barrier. Severe damage to that number 44 Ferrari.
A lot of damage to that rear end and the rear wing on the back as well. They'll need to take care of that through the pit lane. David Williams for VRS Satellite Racing has not come down to serve that drive-through penalty yet. It was assigned, so he will need to serve that before they can continue on with today's race. And that means the TNT Racing Carbon driver of Everett Paddock is going to take over the lead there. On board, Drew Lidke running P5 in GTE. This was the car that Larry Ford made contact with after he spun off of the grass, trying to chase down the SimHQ Motorsports 3 machine of Connor Denny up ahead. And checking the points for GTE, mentioned earlier, SimHQ Motorsports 3 and 2 both have a tie in the point standings right now. 2 is ahead of 3 on the racetrack.
Here comes your race leader and championship leader, David Williams, who has been one of the dominant drivers to come serve his penalty, as he will now fall back all the way probably outside the LMP2 and into the GTE traffic, and we'll see what he can do as you're on board with Jason Lundy. He is in hot pursuit of Christopher Pies as they work their way out of turn 5, heading over into turn number 6. Christopher Pies, of course, for those of you who are a fan of the PCA Sim Racing Series, it's a PCA competitor in that Imperial Motorsports Shake, as he, as well as Leif Peterson, the Series 5 champion, are on board with that LMP2 car, trying to hold off the number 4 of Jason Lundy. As the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue team has been a very strong one as well, running inside the top 5 for a majority of the season now, as David Williams is making quick work of one of the LMP2 cars as he now moves inside the top 10. That car, 67 VRS Satellite, by far one of the strongest teams currently in iRacing, sports car, and endurance racing across the service.
Top 4 currently in GTE, the top 4 in the championship. Not a lot of difference going on race by race. On board with the GP Motorsports machine of Michael Ogren. Looking to get by Leonard Burke still for number 7 on the racetrack, as they will race down the straightaway. Moving to the inside, here comes the NGP Motorsports machine of Michael Ogren to the inside, side by side, heading into the chicane. That purple Triple R Racing Ferrari gonna have a little bit of a better opportunity there. Not as much though, as it switches right back to the inside of the NGP Motorsports number 20 BMW. They take the spot. Up into 7th goes Michael Ogren, and here comes Mick Blue for Can-Am Express, trying to make something happen there in the 85 as well. On board with him as he works their way through the turn.
Mick Blue right now in the catbird seat, watching the Ferrari and BMW battle as they work their way down through the S's, as you're now on board with Eric Mahoney in the Craft Dinner Racing LMP2 car. The mac and cheese machine trying to see if he can get his way a little further up the running order. At number 43 currently holds on to the 7th position after an issue happened for the Imperial Motorsports Shake of Christopher Pies. Have to see if we can get an information regarding that, so stay tuned. We'll figure out what happened there, as we'll see what happens, and we'll try to get with one of our associates on here, Mr. James Andrew, who will be our analysis for certain incidents on track. And here is our race analysis for today's race. James Andrew. James, welcome up. Can we get a quick update on maybe what has happened to car 913 of Imperial Motorsports?
Imperial Motorsports, I haven't actually had my eye on yet because there's been so much other stuff to watch. So you guys are ahead of me on that.
Yeah, he was up inside the podium positions before the pit stop of the VRS Satellite team, and then has dropped all the way back to 6th position. And so we'll try to see if we can find more information on it. But what are some of the things you have pointed out and noticed in the field today so far?
Well, just staying with Imperial Motorsports for a moment, they've fallen back into a tight little bunch there, and they're going to have their work cut out, I think, to sort of just to look backwards first of all and settle themselves if they've had a problem. Elsewhere, the fourth on the grid for the GTE had a terrible start, didn't they? And they, I don't know where they are, where they're gone now. They're working their way back up the grid again, so they're making a comeback. And I think a lot of teams are doing that. They're sort of stuttering first, and then they're finding a rhythm.
Well, one car around, Vinny Lima, Team VVL Systems car, the BMW around right at the exit of pit road.
Tough break for him, as well as we'll try to get a replay on that. You know, and we keep an eye on this thing, Josh, and we could be a possibility of contact with LMP2 cars, or with it a contact with some incidents somewhere else. And there's LMP2 cars around there. Here we see one of the Pneumatic Motorsports purple going to the inside. There's the contact. Multiple P2s involved in this incident, as that number 88 will try to get around another way. And here's more contact, and That's one of the key things here. Once you know how quickly these LMP2 cars come upon you, you have to make room and give way. That's Adrian Fernandez right there in the ADRA Endurance LMP2, one of the new P2 teams here for this race. As we watch on board, there's the contact with the Pneumatic Motorsports Purple, of course, that driver of Robert Tarbox.
And the BMW of Vinny Lima spun a little bit further down as well, wondering if he might have had some damage to that car that then affected the aerodynamics of it, made it a little bit looser and spun him around. Yeah, I think that was exactly what happened. He just hit the power down maybe a little bit too much than that car could handle, and you can see just right on around he goes. Right after that contact with the LMP2s, definitely something happened to that Team VVL Systems car of Vinny Lima, as they are in the pits now. They towed it on back, and they'll grab their repairs, try and head back onto the racetrack.
Indeed, it will be. We'll see if they're able to continue on as you're on board with Chip Witt for WWZ Red in 10th position right now, trying to see if he can work his way up through the field now as they work their way down the front straightaway. Heavy traffic in front of them as they get by one of the Corvette GTE cars, but he is in a fierce battle with the Rebellion Racing of Andrew Cheslock, and then not too far behind the Hard Promise Racing of Nick Kuhn, as well as the Jakester Racing, the car without a Jake, as we like to call it, of Christian Rava. As well as they approach turn number 5, you're on board with Nick Kuhn as they come off corner exit. He'll dive to the outside of Chip Witt down this short chute before they get to turn number 6. Will he complete the pass? The answer will be yes. A great pass by Nick Kuhn, who's a little bit more well known for his short track racing capabilities, but does know a thing or two about getting around in these sports cars.
Still side by side as they work down the straightaway. You can see another LMP2 a little bit further up the road as well. Kuhn and Witt side by side down the straightaway. They'll head into the chicane, and you can see the 17 there as well. Beside the 8 car behind these guys. Christian Rava, contact between the two, and around goes Nick Kuhn for Hard Promises Racing in the 17.
A tough break for Nick Kuhn as he gets turned around here through turns 10A, 10B. Here is your race replay of the incident into the braking zone. You'll see the contact right there. Chip Witt just overshoots, goes over the curbing a little too much, collects up Nick Kuhn into the barriers, and sand trap he goes. You'll watch on board of Nick Kuhn here as they head down towards the braking zone of turn 10A, 10B. You have to be so careful in where to set your car up for this. And then he gets in nice, seems everything's okay. Then right there's the contact.
And unfortunate too, just looked like he went for a door that closed way quicker than he was expecting it to, and contact was made and around with the Hard Promises Racing number 17.
A little further back, Josh, to the GTE field in the SimHQ number 3 car. That's car 56 of Connor Denny. He's having a little bit of a tough time right now as the Can-Am Canucks of Drew Ledecky is making quick pace to him right now over a period of time. In fact, Ledecky was a little bit faster last time around. Is he going to be making ground up this time, or did he make a mistake as Connor Denny is trying to pull away to see if he can have a shot to take over that second position in the point standings?
Last time by for Connor Denny, 1:16.91. Last time by for the Can-Am Canucks machine of Drew Ledecky, it was a 1:17.96. So definitely a little bit of a difference in lap times now between those two. As we take a look at David Williams trying to work his way back up through the field. You can remember back had a drive-through penalty earlier on today for a jumped start in Monza, so he is working his way back through the field, and not that much. He's already worked his way back up to fourth, still just has a little bit more to go.
That Williams, as well as Paul Darling, who will get in the car a little later on in the race here today, have just put on a dominant performance, even with the setback of the penalty, as we now watch the Pneumatic Motorsports Purple of Robert Tarbox in hot pursuit of the Craft Dinner Racing of Eric Mahoney for the 6th position. You also have the Penguin RC Complex Simworks of Brian Sohn in there in the battle for 8th position. Ooh, a little bit of a sketchy situation as he clipped over the curves a little bit too much. Gathers it back up as he works down through the S's, heading up to turn number 5. Hits his mark as Tarbuck is right there on the back bumper. Can he make it stick? Not enough to make it a good run here as they approach some lap traffic. The BMW right there in front of them. He'll take the long way around. Ooh, the BMW throws a little bit of a block to where it cannot make the pass quickly enough. And he has to wait until he gets on to the back straightaway here before really trying to go after Mahoney.
On board with Brian Sohn now, as you can see, cutting through the GTE traffic. Robert Tarbo up in front for Pneumatic Motorsports Purple. Battling fairly close together, and the lap times will show that. Last time by, Sohn made up a good bit of time on Tarbo up ahead. A 1:11.28 for Sohn, a 1:12.117 for Robert Tarbo as they work their way through the field. David Williams lapping incredibly quickly, especially when you compare him to the rest of the LMP2 field. Purple sectors in sector 1 and 2, meaning he has the best times in both of those sectors, and the only driver in sector 1 to set a sector time of under 10 seconds, 9.85 the time on sector 1 last time by for David Williams.
As David Williams is approaching the top 2 in the GTE field, you're on board now with Leonard Burke of Triple R Racing, Car 71. He is trying to see if he can get a little further up inside the top 10. That's Mick Blue in the Can-Am Express BMW right in front of them, with Michael Ogren in the NGP. Actually, that's not the NGP. That's actually going to be one of the Longhorn Racing. There's the NGP of Michael Ogren up in 7th position right now. He had a little bit of a 10-second advantage over the Can-Am Express of Mick Blue. That's Mike Tyler in the Longhorn Racing Ferrari, who is 2 laps down after an incident for his number 44, as we brought out early on in the opening stages. As they approach turn 10, you see Nick Kuhn right behind these 2 GTE cars, sweeps around the outside of these 2 cars, tries to see if he can get one of the positions, tries to go for both of them as they approach turn 8. A little lock up by Tyler as he will try to gather it back up. That will now in Leonard Burke.
Still battling on the racetrack in LMP2. As we grab a look at the one car going way off track. That is Nick Kuhn in the Hard Promises Racing number 17. He went straight off the track and into the tire barrier. Wondering if that could have been a hardware issue for the number 17 Hard Promises Racing machine.
Yeah, he just completely missed the corner there, Joshua. Hits the barrier, a little bit of damage to the Alara, so we'll have to see what will happen for Nick Kuhn. See the rest of the field snake way down the back straightaway. We're on board with Chip Witt in the WZ Red in that 10th position in last, trying to hold off the Jake Racing of the Hard Promise. Actually, that's not the Hard Promise. That's actually the DDN Racing of Matthew Overton right behind him at turns 11 and 12.
On board, taking a look back at that battle between these 2 LMP2 cars. Fastest lap of the race set last time by, take a guess, David Williams, VRS Satellite Racing in the number 67, trying to chase down the cars in front of him. The only driver now in the 1:08s in the lap times, 1:08.90 for the VRS Satellite Racing machine of David Williams. As you can see him racing back to the chicane. And we'll start another lap here at Road Atlanta, going through the final corner, similar to Lime Rock, that final corner, downhill, sweeping over to the right. very difficult to get right as well, but David Williams not getting anything wrong right now as he snakes his way through more GTE traffic, trying to catch up to Christopher Pies, who is the next LMP2 car that he is battling for position on the racetrack, and there's only one GTE car separating the two now. So 913 sits up in third for LMP2, and there goes David Williams right on by that GTE. So now it'll be LMP2 on LMP2 with, oh, by the way, the second place car as well, Jason Lundy from Pneumatic Motorsports, blue right up there as well. David Williams looking to get 2 in a row right here in LMP2 to take over the lead. As we take a look at Jason Lundy working his way around more GTE traffic, as everybody in the LMP2 field is trying to navigate their way through the courses. Everybody pretty spread out on the racetrack right now in terms of the classes. GTE will be dealing with LMP2 cars trying to race around them. LMP2 cars will be dealing with GTE cars trying to race around them. And a GTE Ferrari is right off into the grass and flipping on the front straightaway. I believe it was Leonard Burke in the 71 just went right off track and flipping on the front straightaway.
Let's take a look at the race replay of Leonard Burke right now as he's coming down the back straightaway. Was there contact involved or a mistake made for that number 71 Ferrari? Here they come to turns 10A, 10B. You see one of the Longhorn Racing Ferraris right behind him. I believe that's Mike Tyler in the 77 right there as well. Actually, 44 as they dive it through turn 10A, 10B. He gets through, lets him by. And as they approach up, a little bit loose right there, hits the outside wall barrier, almost collects Nick Kuhn. That's the damage. He should have probably come down pit road right here, but doesn't. As they comes out of the final corner, gets clipped right there, and I guess something happened to the steering column for that race car to where it turned straight into the wall, but really, I don't understand why the 71 of Leonard Burke just did that instead of just coming down pit road.
The unfortunate break 2 was battling up earlier in the GTE field. Looked like he had a really fast car under him. On board now, David Williams for VRS Satellite Racing, trying to work his way back up to the lead where he began this race. Christopher Pies right in front of him. They worked their way through the S's. Where will the 67 try and make a move, and when will he try and make a move? Remember, still a driver change coming up in this 2.5-hour race as we are 22 minutes down and continuing.
See what happens right here between these two drivers as they have lap traffic in front of them, as well as the second place driver, Jason Lundy. Williams being patient, trying to find a way around Christopher Pies. He'll dive to the inside as they approach turn number 10. He will try to complete the pass and clear him through turns 10. Move David Williams up to third as we see Christopher Pies holding on to fourth now as they come out of the final few corners. Here we go. Will Christopher Pies respond back? Can't quite seem to find a way to get to the inside. Heading back into turn 1 now. He has lap traffic in front of him. That is going to be Nick Kuhn right in front. He will give way to David Williams as well as Christopher Pies as Williams escapes away from Christopher Pies and heads away to chase after Jason Lundy.
On board with Jack Chrissy for Renault Alpine Racing as we transition back to GTE. We're hearing Renault Alpine Racing faster than the leader and forcibly pushing them through the track. Last time by, they'll come across the start-finish line and we'll get an updated lap times for both of them. 1:15.70 for Unified Performance Racing, 1:15.88 for Renault Alpine Racing, but you go back about one lap ago, it was about a 1 second difference to Unified Performance Racing from Renault Alpine Racing. So Renault Alpine definitely very strong behind the wheel of their Corvette here today, getting up on the curbs as they race their way out of the S's and down into the two tight right-handers at the back end of the circuit. Hess still leads ahead of Chrissy. It's Busicombe, Denny, and Lidke, your top 5 for GTE.
As you're on board right now, David Williams got around Jason Lundy for second. Now has 18.4 seconds to try and make up to get around the TNT Racing carbine. As you'll see the replay, does he pull it off again like he did the last time with Christopher Pye? He does, almost to a degree. Decides to take the long way around this time by, as they have a BMW. Could he utilize as a pick? Couldn't quite make it work. He gets around the BMW, gets the momentum on his side, gets a great run out of the final corner, ducks to the inside heading into turn 1, will complete the pass and move him up to P2, as we see the battle between Lundy and Christopher Pye is now pick up a little bit.
Flashing lights for the 913 of Christopher Pye's. Chasing down Jason Lundy now, as Lundy got passed by VRS Satellite Racing's David Williams, fell down into the clutches now of the Imperial Motorsports machine as they race by the GTE. Where will Pies try and make a move on board with the Imperial Motorsports Shake machine? Racing through the S's here at Road Atlanta.
Climbing, then downhill here, heading up to turn number 5. They make it through nice and clean, but we see Lundy's pulling away from Christopher Pye as they head down the short chute towards turn number 6. Meanwhile, the battle for 7th between Robert Tarbox as well as Eric Mahoney starting to pick up just a little bit. Tarbox was about 2 seconds faster than Eric Mahoney in the Craft Dinner Racing last time by. As we'll see what will happen between these two drivers as they head down through the S's. A great battle between these two as they continue. A little bit of lap traffic up in front of them. I believe that might be also the Penguins RC Complex Simworks car right in front of them of Brian Sohn, who was 2 seconds faster than those two combined with a 110.665.
Down the front straightaway, another battle in the LMP2 field. On board right now, Christopher Pye still trying to work his way around Jason Lundy, just not able to do it. And Taylor, this brings up a unique thing about Road Atlanta. There's really not a lot of passing opportunities, especially when you're not directly on the back bumper of the car in front of you. Right now, the gap between Lundy and Pye is, albeit it's not that much, it's ranging from about 2.5 tenths to maybe 5 tenths a lap, but he's just not close enough to make a move without completely diving it up the inside. And it's not the smartest thing to do, as an inside door will close incredibly quickly when you reach the apex of a corner, especially the chicane that they're working up to now.
That's one of the things that a driver has to do, is just take their time to be careful through certain sections. As you see Tarbox and Mahoney battling, a little bit of lap traffic in front of them, one of the BMWs from the Can-Am Canucks as they dive down the short chute heading into turn number 6. Tarbox is just being patient. He has to realize he's not close enough to make any of these passes right here, Joshua, as he sees a mistake right there by Mahoney. That could be the opportunity that Tarbox needs to get the run he needs down the long back straightaway heading over to turn 10. Will he dive it in there? We will find out here momentarily as he gets the draft, closes in closer, thinking about taking the outside way and has to brake, couldn't quite make it work. He'll have to try again next time around.
Another battle between two LMP2 cars. The 43, Eric Mahoney, Robert Tarbox continuing on the track. About 2 main battles currently in LMP2. Lundy and Pies, and then Mahoney and Tarbox as we check back in with that battle between Pies and Lundy. Pies starting to fall down a little bit farther from the 3rd place machine of Lundy further up the road here at Road Atlanta. Grabbing a look at them, will the 913 make a move through the chicane? No, he doesn't. Stays right behind in the tire tracks, but not falling too far behind. Like I mentioned, about 2.5 tenths to about 5 tenths seems to be that gap as it ranges on the track. As you can see, a good run out of the final corner to the inside goes the 913 of Christopher Pies. He'll take over P3. A great move to the inside through turn number 1. Put Lundy back to 4th, and now up into 3rd, it's Christopher Pies.
Christopher Pye now having a great run as they work their way through some lap traffic. That's Leonard Burke right in front of them, along with one of the Longhorn Racing teams, as they try to get themselves situated. As they head down the straightaway here. Oh, close contact between the two. Able to get around those two Ferraris as quickly as possible through turn 6. But Christopher Pye still has the advantage over Jason Lundy.
On board now, Jack Chrissy, second place in GTE, trying to take the lead away, and is at Renault Alpine Racing number 69 from Justin Hess, Unified Performance Racing number 37. We talk about United Performance Racing obviously throughout the entire season, as they are undefeated currently in GTE. If the Renault Alpine Racing machine of Jack Chrissy can beat them, that'll be the first time that anybody has beaten United Performance Sim Racing this season. They have a perfect points of 140, 35 from Daytona, Sebring, Le Mans, and Monza. So they are having a absolutely perfect season right now, trying to keep that up.
Trouble!
Not easy, but there he goes, right off track.
Justin Hess, the first major mistake we've seen all season long in that red Ferrari, and it's cost him the race lead over the Renault Alpine Racing Corvette. Let's take a look at the race replay as you see Justin Hess in the Unified Performance Racing Ferrari. He'll be coming up through turns 1 and 2 nice and clean, Billy, at the lead lap cars of the LMP2 traffic work their way by. Slight little miscommunication that causes him to overshoot the corner and miss the apex, having to cut through the secondary escape road, allowing Jack Chrissy to take over the race lead.
I have a feeling that could have been a little bit of commentator's curse there. So I did send my my apologies out to Justin Hess and Unified Performance Sim Racing. I don't know if he's watching the broadcast here tonight, but if he is, I could have just completely jinxed him going off track there. But he didn't lose too much time, only down about 2 seconds on the leader, Jack Chrissy. Now we'll really get to see what this United Performance Sim Racing car can do as they race their way back up to the lead, as we now reach 31 minutes down, a little under 2 hours left, and still a driver change and pit stops left to go to Taylor Burris. There's still a marathon left of this race. Definitely not out of time by any means for Hess in the 37.
Certainly going to be the case right now, Josh, as we keep an eye on that, as both of the two most dominant drivers of the entire season, the VRS Satellite Racing team of David Williams and Paul Darling, and then the Unified Performance Racing Ferrari of Justin Hess and Kurt Poulter, both not currently leading their respective classes, as they have been all season long, due to either mistakes or penalties that they had to serve here in today's race. But as a quick update, the gap though between TNT Racing Carvin of Everett Paddock, your race leader in LMP2, has about a 12-second lead over David Williams in the VRS Satellite Racing. It's kind of stabilized right now. No major changes as far as the lap times. Both of them running very considerable to identical lap times in the 109 bracket. As for Justin Hess, well, he's back where he left off. He's now gaining back to the back bumper of the Renault Alpine Racing Corvette of Jack Chrissy as they come across the start-finish line heading into turn 1.
Battles continuing to work their way through here at Road Atlanta. Chrissy and Hess can go back to battling in the GTE field. And while they do, we will thank one of our many sponsors here to help put on today's race, Penguin RC. Penguin RC makes high-quality, affordable simulation products for all sim racers. Their main products include wheel and button boxes crafted to excellence and care. Their line of products is continually being expanded, and as the sim racing community expands, especially during these times. The most popular unit is the PS Mod 1 wheel box, which is universal for most all controllers. Penguin RC won't produce anything at a price that they wouldn't personally pay. See for yourself how beautifully manufactured their work is at their website, penguinrc.com.
I gotta say that Penguin RC, those button boxes are phenomenal. You should definitely try to get one if you get the chance, as we now watch the battle for the GTE race lead. Jack Chrissy, Justin Hess, Ferrari versus Corvette. Where have we seen this before in all of sports car racing as they dive it into turn 1? The Ferrari of Hess trying to find his way back up to the race lead. Jack Chrissy not wanting to give it away in the colorful, misconfused Renault Alpine Corvette as they dive it down through the S's, climbing up towards turn number 5. Justin Hess can't seem to get the run he needs as Chrissy starts to pull away again.
Using all that runoff area he possibly can is Jack Chrissy. On board, Justin Hess for Unified Performance Racing. Last time by 1:16.14. Last time by for Chrissy 1:16.51. He is trying to catch up to the leader, but now that he has reached him, Taylor, it's a lot different to catch the car in front versus pass the car in front. Now he's got to find a way around for the race lead.
He certainly does there, Joshua. One thing to keep in mind is that the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue of Jason Lundy is one of the first competitors inside the top 5 to have made a pit stop for their car. They are now sitting in the 8th position, 1 lap down currently at this time. But let's go back to the GTE race battle, because here comes Justin Hess in that red Ferrari as he is now trying to see if he can get to the inside of Jack Chrissy. He's right in the tail stream right there as they dive into turn 1, right still in the back bumper. You're on board with Hess. He takes a peek to the inside through turns 2 and 3. Can't quite close enough. Heading into the S's now. Hess just stalking and waiting for that opportune time to attack.
It could be, Taylor. I've seen it before with a lot of drivers, especially in long-form endurance racing. Right off track goes Jack Chrissy. Renault Alpine Racing number 69 went into the grass. He took a trip off-road, and he falls to 2nd place. I was about to say, I think Hess might just be buying his time, waiting for pit stops, but Chrissy goes right off track.
He certainly does right here. As you see on the race replay, he gets a little bit loose on the dreaded turn 5 hump right here. As you watch what will happen, he clips the curbing, clips the hump, sends it into the grass, hits the tire barrier. That's going to cause significant damage to that Corvette.
Man, and he was having such a great race and trying to hold on to the lead. Just got a little bit too overzealous on the rumble strip. It bounced that car up and over, off track and into the wall. So unfortunate for that machine, but he still falls to 2nd place and not that far off. Only about 1 second now separating the top 2 in GTE.
Yeah, but take a look at the damage on that Corvette, though, Joshua. It's going to be a little bit difficult to him to keep up pace with that little bit of damage to the, I believe, passenger side of that car. So that would be on the left side of that Corvette. So he's going to have to try to get that fixed on his next pit stop.
And right front damage to that machine. We'll see if it'll affect the car. Undoubtedly, they'll attempt to get it fixed under the pit stop. Just how much is it going to affect that car until they come into the pits? Speaking of pits, a good amount of LMP2 cars making their way in. VRS Satellite Racing is in, Imperial Motorsports is in, TNT Racing, Adra Endurance, DDM Racing also in, Pneumatic Motorsports Purple and Jakester Racing already completing their pit stops in this cycle. Same thing with Pneumatic Motorsports Blue.
Certainly is the case right now for a lot of these drivers as they come down to serve their pit stops in order to keep going here. Here comes the TNT Racing Carbon of Everett Paddock off of pit road, your race leader in car number 82, who is out there to try and challenge for the race lead of the VRS of David Williams, who also just came off pit road. We'll see how the timing difference is going to be between these two as they get the tires heated up a little bit and continue on their way currently before pit stops with about 11.9 seconds.
Good drop there, Taylor. LMP2 car around in the S's. I'm not exactly sure who it was. I think it might have been one of the cars that just came down pit road, but I'm not 100% sure who it was. Either way, one car around in the S's seems to be all good. No damage to any major cars. I believe it was the 127, and they do have damage. Adrian Fernandez for Adrian Endurance.
One of the new teams that's come in here had a good run at the start of the race, but now has struggled with several incidences now here during this race. Now 1 lap down in 11th position. So keep an eye on their progress now as Christopher Pies from Imperial Motorsports is right behind them. They just completed their pit stop and see if they can find a way to hunt down the race leaders as they head down the long back straightaway. The Jakester Racing of Christian Rava right behind them as well.
And if anybody watching is wondering, our producer Ryan Bauer was wondering, yes, it is the Adrian Fernandez, retired Mexican racing driver, co-owner of the Fernandez racing team. And he'll bring it into the pit lane and grab his pit stop and damage repair in the same one.
Not a bad deal, as we see Brian Sohn now joining on screen. Oh, big trouble. Mahoney goes around in front of him. What a save for Sohn to not make contact, as the rest of GTE and LMP2s tries to get around the Kraft Dinner Racing of Eric Mahoney. Comes him back around and joins the track and continues on his way, but a tough break for that team, as they've been having a strong run here today.
Replay of what happened to Eric Mahoney. We'll see if any contact was caused. We're seeing a lot of wrecks right there, specifically that corner tonight, trying to just dive it in a little bit too hard, get the power down a little bit too early, and that just sends the car around. Both LMP2 and GTE having issues there today. There's another look on board. You can see just a little bit too much. Went full lock on the wheel, not enough to save it from going around. So around went Mahoney, down now 8th place in LMP2. So we look back to your GTE leaders, Justin S., Jake Chrissy battling on the track.
Great battle right there, as Jack Chrissy is trying to see if he can get to the back bumper of Justin Hess, but he might have to wait till after pit stops to see what he can do. Here comes Everett Paddock, your race leader now, working through LMP2 lap traffic right now as they continue on with this battle here. A long stretch of cars in front of your race leader. We'll see what he can accomplish while working through the field here today.
On board, Everett Paddock now, your new leader in LMP2 after the pit stops. Williams falls to 2nd place in the VRS Satellite Racing driver. 108.87, best lap of the race for Everett Paddock in the TNT Racing Carbon. Best lap overall, 108.68 from David Williams in VRS Satellite Racing. So the two fastest LMP2s of the day are your two current leaders. As we take a look at Nick Kuhn, Hard Promises Racing number 17, down into the pit lane for his pit stop during this cycle, and that is going to conclude every LMP2 driver coming in during this pit stop cycle.
For those of you who are wondering, LMP2s usually go about anywhere between 30 to 45 minutes on a tank of fuel, so they will try and get as much as they can. We should see them coming down at least 3 to 4 more times, or 3 times at least, before the end of the race, while the GTE cars usually go about an hour long, so they will at least make 2, maybe 3 pit stops as well, depending on how much they save and when they choose to come down pit road. So we should be seeing the GTE field coming down anywhere between the next 10 to 15 minutes.
These GTE pit stops will make these battles even more interesting, because GTE, comparatively to LMP2, has been spreading out rather quickly and more than LMP2 was earlier. So we'll see if that'll bunch them up or if it'll lead to any surprising overtakes on pit road, and could lead to a change in the race lead. We saw it for LMP2, very possible for GTE, for Hess and Chrissy to swap spots on the racetrack.
Certainly is the case right now as we watch on and see Everett Paddock working through lap traffic. That's one of the NGP BMWs right in front of him as he's trying to make short work of that BMW. Down the back straightaway here, heading over into turn number 8 and 9. How as we see the Pneumatic Motorsports purple of Jimmy Hume right in front of him, running in the 5th position as he approaches turn 10.
Through the chicane goes Everett Paddock for TNT Racing Carbon. David Williams behind him in 2nd place. Not moving the needle on the gap too terribly much. It's about 8.5 seconds now as they come across the start-finish line, and we'll see how it changes throughout this run. But last time by for Everett Paddock, 110.12. David Williams for VRS Satellite Racing ended up with a 109.58. So he's etching away at it, not terribly quickly, but we should see, especially with the traffic that Everett Paddock is dealing with right now, we should see a battle for the lead in LMP2 brewing.
We certainly should be seeing one brewing here momentarily between your top two of the VRS satellite of David Williams and Everett Paddock in TNT Racing Carbon. Right now, though, you see Jack Chrissy in that 69 Corvette trying to get around some lap traffic, plus having to keep an eye on one of the LMP2s. That's the Rebellion Racing of Andrew Cheslock, as that BMW goes a little wide through the escape road and continues on safely here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, as you see Jakester Racing, the car without a Jake, still out on the track.
Two LMP2 cars battling on the racetrack as they work their way on to this straightaway and into the chicane. Things definitely starting to calm down after that pit stop. A couple of cars are still in a battle. Obviously, the Jakester Racing for Christian Rava and DDM Racing's Matthew Overton in a battle, but everybody else kind of settling out, especially in GTE, as they're still waiting to make their first pit stops of the race.
They certainly are. Connor Denny, who's been on the sim for almost about 5 to 6 years now, and we're competing on the sim racing service, whether it be iRacing or others, in his Corvette. Part of the Sim HQ team, which is one of the more numerous teams here, as they have about 3 cars, of course only 2 in the GTE field, and then they had 1 LMP2 for a time, but not racing here, as he's getting a little close for comfort for David Williams right in front behind him. As we watch on, this should be, no, that's Brian Sohn in front of the David Williams VRS satellite racing team of the SimWorks team in front of him as they dive it down, heading into turn 1 once again. Williams is on a tear, trying to see if he can make up the needed ground to get back up to where he's normally used to, up at the front of the field, which is about 6.7 seconds between the top 2.
Williams trying to cut his way through the field as quickly and as efficiently as possible. He's going to take him 3 wide up the middle as they make their way into the back half of the circuit. 2 tight right-handers. Easy to get the power down there. He does so incredibly well. Going right on around, more GTE traffic. About 8 seconds now, the gap between Paddock and Williams, but Williams was dealing with that traffic. We'll see if that changes now that he is within open track.
Certainly might be the case as we watch on as these two get around some lap traffic. A little bit of a checkup, though, and slide from Brian Sohn right there for the Penguin RC Complex SimWorks. They're able to gather it back up and continue on his way. Close call for him as he still holds on to that 6th spot. And as we have now are approaching the 1 hour mark here, it is time to bring you the Penguin RC Simulation Race Report. Make sure to go check them out for all of your SimWorks sim racing needs, from Button Box and many more. Currently at the top of the leaderboard, the TNT Racing Carbon of Everett Paddock has been your race leader since the penalty of the VRS satellite racing team. They have had a strong, steady lead as far as almost 15 seconds at one point. It's now over 8 seconds between him and second place driver David Williams, who had a SERTA penalty in the opening stages, falling back to the last car on the lead lap in class, but has fought back to second place some 8 seconds back. In third position, you will find the Imperial Motorsports Shake team of Christopher Pies, who has been in heavy competition all race long, whether it be with competitors or lap traffic, as he works his way around Nick Kuhn as one of the BMWs goes off hard into the barriers behind them. He will sit in third. Meanwhile, in fourth, the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue of Jason Lundy, one of those cars who's also been having a very busy and hectic schedule race here, battling with Christopher Pye since the drop of the green flag. He, though, has a little bit of work to do as he's 4 seconds back from Chris Pies. Rounding out your top 5 is the sister car, the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue Purple of Jimmy Hume. As they work their way down the back straightaway, he is trying to stay on the lead lap as he is the last car on the lead lap, trying to avoid and get away from Everett Paddock. First car one lap down is Brian Sohn of the Penguin RC Complex Simworks team. He has been having a quiet race, running inside the top 7 pretty much for the majority of this race as he tries to work his way through turn number 10. In 7th position, the Craft Dinner Racing of Eric Mahoney had a strong opening race here, but had one mistake coming out of that very corner he just came out of, but still recovered nicely to that 7th position. The 43 car has completed a pit stop and should be doing a driver change next time when he comes down pit road. 8th position is the Jigster Racing of Christian Rava, the car without a jig, still trying to see if he can maintain a top 10 finish here, looking for probably, I believe, his best finish of the season in that number 8 Dallara, working through lap traffic as quickly as possible, but does have a little competition behind him of the DDM Racing of Matthew Overton, who's also had a quiet race battling with his competitors here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, working through lap traffic, gets by one of them quickly to see if he can battle for the 8th spot. Rounding out your top 10 in class is WWZ Red of Chip Witt. 2 laps down, has had a tough race here tonight at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, but is still on the charge with a strong top 10 finish. 11th right behind is John Taylor Tammy and the Rebellion Racing number 3. They're trying to see if they can have a little bit of better racing here today as they try to catch up to the back bumper of Chip Witt. Rounding out your rest of your LMP2 field, Hard Promise Racing, Nick Kuhn, well, they've had some hard luck on their side. Multiple instances throughout the race involving the tire barriers, gravel traps, and contact with other cars. We'll see what they can do here to close out this race. And rounding out your LMP2 field in 13th, Adrian Fernandez. Yes, that Adrian Fernandez, as he is going to see what he can do here after a great start. Contact with one of the pneumatic motorsports cars is costed them multiple times on pit road and multiple laps here today at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Josh, what's the GTE field looking like?
Still leading the way after rebounding from an incident earlier on. Unified Performance Racing's Justin Hess in that red Ferrari for P1. Down to P2, Jack Chrissy for Renault Alpine Racing, trying to close that gap a little further. It's extended around to 8 seconds now. We'll see where they'll sit after the pit stops commence. Brian Van Busicombe sits in 3rd place for SimHQ Motorsports 2, breaking the tie in the points between SimHQ Motorsports 2 and 3. Speaking of SimHQ Motorsports 3, they sit in 4th place. Connor Denny behind the wheel of that car at the moment, a 1:16.27, his best lap of the race. Rounding out your top 5 for GTE, Drew Lidke for Can-Am Canucks, looking to rebound after some contact a little bit earlier on with an LMP2 that was spinning in the S's. They sit in 5th currently, 1 up from where they started the race, 2 up from where they started the race. Michael Ogren for NGP Motorsports in their number 20 BMW. Brian Blanchett for Team Brake Fade, still where they started the race in 7th place, looking to gain a couple of spots on the track to work their way up through the field. 8th place, Anthony James. He is the biggest mover of your GTE field so far. Started down in 13th in class. He's up to 8th in class, up 5 spots from where he originally started in the All Balls Racing number 77. Rounding out the 9th place, up 3 spots from where they originally started the day, Phil Elmore for Longhorn Racing Lone Star. Brian Sabelski rounds out your top 10 for Can-Am Express, and he is in the pit lane and now exiting the pit lane after his scheduled pit stop here. First of the GTEs, expect some more to start to come down now after our race report. Julie Redmond rounding out your top 11 for last minute racing. Leonard Burke having a whole host of issues here. He grabbed his fast repair back on the track, looking to gain more spots for Triple R Racing. He sits in 12th in his number 71 Ferrari. Mike Tyler for Longhorn Racing, 13th place, down 2 from where they originally started, looking to join their Longhorn Racing teammate Phil Elmore a little bit further up the track as they sit in 13th. 14th place, Steven Rivard for MMTR, not having the race that they want. Hopefully they can gain a couple more spots on your race leaders as they sit about 4 laps down from Unified Performance Racing's Justin Hess. Vina Lima is your last car in GTE, but unfortunately off the track and retired in the pit lane.
And with that, that concludes the first Penguin RC race report. Remember, go check out Penguin RC for high-quality, affordable simulation products for all of your sim racing needs. That's penguinrc.com. And then with that, we continue on here today at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. This is the championship season finale for this series. And quickly, we're going to take a quick look at the point standings for both of these classes. In LMP2, it is VRS Satellite Racing with 140 points, an 18-point advantage over Imperial Motorsports. So those two teams have had the strongest points running, as you see them right now running in second and third. And then third in the points is the CMS Pro Summit team. Unfortunately, they are not in today's race here. So that team is in jeopardy of losing points to none other than the Pneumatic Motorsports Purple, who is currently in fourth. But right now, the GTE field is on pit road. Josh, what do you see going on?
More GTE cars following in. Justin S., Jack Chrissy, Nolan Kinslow. Now, driver swap for SimHQ Motorsports 2 as Kinslow hops in the car during the pit stop. Doesn't look like anybody else going to make a driver swap, especially from these top 3. Hess and Chrissy back on the track after fuel and tires, and that will push them a little bit closer together on pit exit.
Looking at it, looks like Jack Chrissy took that fast repair he needed in order to try to continue on with his battle with Justin Hess in that Unified Performance Racing Ferrari. So we'll keep track of their races as we approach towards the halfway point of today's race. Here comes Justin Hess around some lap traffic right now. You'll see right behind him one of the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue. As we see what will happen here, we are going to see what happens with Jason Lundy. Will he work through this GTE field quickly? Yes, he will. As with that, I think it's safe to say that he is pretty much by himself now. We're going to still keep an eye on that battle here, because this is basically the battle for the lead, Joshua, between Jack Chrissy and Justin Hess once the pit stop cycles through.
And they're battling through traffic as well. It's not easy to battle through lap traffic, not only in your own class, but also if you're having to battle with other classes. Obviously, the LMP2 is a good bit faster than the GTEs. They'll race right on around them, but it gets difficult to make battles, and you always have slower cars or faster cars going by you at every single direction. So we'll see how this battle is going to develop. We're on board with Jack Chrissy, not letting him get away too far as they work their way through the S's. About 6/10 separate these two as they head up the hill.
Earlier, he was able to get through it nice and cleanly, still in hot pursuit of Justin Hess as they come up to turn number 6 and 7. As we watch, seeing one of the LMP2 cars right behind him, that's, I believe, the DDM Racing LMP2, no, Rebellion Racing of John Taylor Tammy, getting by quickly Jack Chrissy, and now Justin Hess on the outside before they approach turn 10, and a great job for him to see if he can continue on with this battle here. Justin Hess and Jack Chrissy both sitting in the 4th and 5th position, as the rest of your top 3 right now in the GTE field is suited as followed. The SimHQ are now on pit road, and the Can-Am Canucks also on pit with Team Brake of Brian Blanche in the BMW. Still holding on to the race. Should see them come down pit road this time by.
Just a handful of cars still waiting to come down. Brian Blanchett for GTE, Anthony James, only two left in GTE to not come in. And the SimHQ Motorsports 3 machine is in as well. Paul Hale now going to hop into that number 56 Corvette and try and gain a little bit more positions. Right now, tied with their SimHQ Motorsports teammate for the points. In second place is SimHQ Motorsports 2 and 3. Whoever finishes on top of each other will grab that second place spot in the points. Right now belongs to Nolan Kinslow, who just got in the car, and SimHQ Motorsports number 2.
He certainly did, and that will make things. A fresh driver always helps out when it comes to racing at any sports car and endurance racing. Keep an eye and see what will happen there, as we are going to take a quick commercial break. But don't worry, when we come back, we'll bring you more action here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. You are watching the Champion Motorsports iRacing Team Endurance Series season finale here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Welcome back to the iRacing Team Endurance Series powered by Champion Motorsports. And Joshua, how about that commercial? That is that they're coming back in 2022 with a lot of great racing action for all of you fans of sports car and endurance racing. And of course, myself, Taylor Burris here, Joshua Lee, and Ryan Bauer bringing you all the pictures, storylines, and coverage here for this season finale here at Road Atlanta.
Little under an hour and a half left here in the season finale from the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. On board, Jack Chrissy trying to catch up to the Unified Performance Racing driver of Justin Hess a little bit further up the road. Doesn't seem to be too easy, however, Taylor Burris. These cars are relatively close on speed, and I say relatively because Justin Hess is just a tad bit faster and is able to use that to his advantage. But Jack Chrissy, they're either going to need to make adjustments to that car or try and get a better pit strategy, get a huge gap in between those two. Right now, Hess running away with it in the Unified Performance Racing Ferrari. Finally, a red Ferrari this season, and trying to do a clean sweep, win every race this season.
He certainly is trying to pull off the clean sweep. Another driver who's also trying to pull off the clean sweep is the VRS Satellite Racing Team. David Williams and Paul Darling, they have closed the gap down to the TNT Racing Carbon of Everett Paddock, who sits as your race leader. 4.2 seconds separates those two drivers as he is starting to close in the gap. Your points leader and race leader and winner for all the rounds overall in an LMP2, looking to try to close out another great season here before we kick off 22. So we're going to bring in our race analysis of James Andrew here. And we have some interesting situations going on, James. Let's start off about the Can-Am Canucks. Why do you think they did not take tires during their pit stop?
Well, I always have to have a caveat that I'm just looking at some timings here and I can't say exactly what happened with their pit stop, but they were stationary for far less time than everybody else. Far less time. So they've shot up, they've got third position with a big gap around them. I could only think that they're just having a bit of fun and trying to roll the dice and see what happens. I don't know what the tyre wear is like here. I can't give you that data.
So that's something we have to maybe keep an eye on, especially when they come down for another pit stop, is are they going to change tires or not?
I think I will keep an eye on their lap times through their stint, and if they start to fade, I will let you know.
Okay, and the LMP2s, you're talking about how that they may need to be stopping in the next 10 laps or so, and we should by that time see VRS try to catch the race leader for during that pit stop. Is it going to be a matter of who gets off pit road the quickest, especially if a driver change is involved?
It's always going to be, you would hope that the stationary time will be about the same, but it's going to be so close coming into the pits, I think. And certainly on the way out, they're going to be on high alert. Both the drivers will be on high alert coming in and coming out, and looking for every little advantage they can get.
Well, we do really appreciate you, James, and we look forward to seeing what other points that you can find for us during the rest of today's race. That is James Andrew, our race analysis here as we continue on here at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta. Everett Paddock, your race leader, still in the TNT Racing Carbon. They have taken the lead ever since the penalty was handed over to VRS Satellite Racing for their penalty that they incurred at the last round at Monza with 1.25 hours to go. As they continue on here, their lap times, though, Joshua, are very consistent compared to the rest of the field right now, as looking at the lap times, they were 2 seconds faster than David Williams.
And they're doing a great job with that lead that they got off of the pit stop as well. And just holding on to it, because nobody has been able to really hold on to a lead. We saw David Williams and VRS Satellite Racing have that penalty, the drive-through penalty at the beginning of the race, fell all the way back, and then it rebounded all the way back to the lead relatively simply and easily. So now, with Paddock in the lead for TNT Racing Carbon and keeping it, that shows that somebody can beat VRS Satellite Racing and that they might be beat here today.
It certainly might be the case here as we watch on David Williams trying to find the time he needs to get up to the back bumper of the TNT Racing Carbon of Everett Paddock. The gap now 4.9 seconds separates the two drivers. Pit stops should be happening here in the next 10 laps or so, expecting around probably just under an hour or just shy of an hour left to go in the race as you're on board with the Pneumatic Motorsports Purple of Jimmy Hume, who is the first car 1 lap down. The sister car, the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue of Jason Lundy, is the last car on the lead lap overall and in class in 4th.
Continuing on the track here for the season finale of Champion Motorsports iRacing Endurance Series. One of the many sponsors that helps put on this series is GridFinder. GridFinder is your go-to source for sim racing leagues. GridFinder is currently home to over 500 leagues across all gaming platforms and covering 10 different racing sims. Need a commentator or broadcaster for your races? Search GridFinder. Need a livery designer for your car? Search GridFinder. And GridFinder has teamed up with the sim racing community to create a sim racing calendar in support of the men's mental health charity Calm. 100% of the profits will be going to Calm. Visit grid-finder.com. Once again, grid-finder.com to purchase a calendar to keep track of all of your races and support a great charity. GridFinder, the home of online sim racing leagues.
As we have a race replay of an incident out on track, it looks like the Express of Brian Esky has a little bit of heading into turn number 10. Yep, just around, break a little bit as he tries to gather it back up. No other car contact, but a close call for David Williams, who will snake to the inside and get by him as quickly as possible.
We've seen a decent amount of spins today, and it's a little bit surprising, honestly, to me at least, because we're seeing the cloud cover, track's cooling down relatively at the moment. Time in the sims 10:42 a.m. By the way, iRacing Day was just a little bit ago. May 15th was yesterday, so default iRacing day was yesterday. I don't know I don't know if anybody did anything to
Did we just call that National iRacing Day?
I think we should. It's the default sim day in iRacing, so I feel like it should be National iRacing Day. That's my thought, at least.
I agree with you on that, Josh. We should try and petition that with all the people up at iRacing, saying, "Hey, should be National iRacing Day. We should have something special going on."
We very much should. Oh yeah, back to what I was saying. It's mostly cloudy, 66 degrees Fahrenheit, track temperature 76 degrees. It's relatively cool on the track, so it's weird that we're seeing so many spins. Usually a cool track means lots of grip. They're able to get the power down more quickly and efficiently, but that doesn't seem to be the case here today.
Certainly does not, but it does certainly show that the speeds are actually there and the drivers are showcasing that. We've seen times under 1 minute 10 for at least 5 different drivers in the field, actually 6 different drivers who have run under the 1 minute 10 mark here today. And then in the GTE field, only 2 drivers in the 1:15 bracket. So it just shows the caliber of pace here for these drivers as we keep on and working through this race here. Under 1.5 hours to go, approaching 1 hour and 20, as David Williams, he is within striking distance. Less than 2 seconds separates him from Everett Paddock as they approach turn number 5.
2.2 seconds the gap between Paddock and now Williams. Williams has a GTE car sitting in front of him. The GTE will pull over to the side, let Williams go right on by. Now completely open track in between Paddock and Williams as they go back to fighting in between these two. Heading back into the chicane. Paddock trying to run away a little bit more. Got about 1/10 between him and Williams. Gained it that time by on the straightaway. But still, Williams is there. The VRS Satellite Racing car is there. 2.4 seconds back and looking for the lead before the second round of pit stops.
Keeping an eye right now, here comes Justin Hess, your leader in the GTE field. He has pulled out to an enormous lead over Jack Christie, the largest we've seen in a while, by about 3 seconds between the two as they approach turn 10A, 10B. Jack Christie in that Corvette, Hess in the Ferrari, as they dive it down through turn 10, 11, and 12 out of the final corner, and another lap completed for these two drivers as they continue to do battle.
And Hess with a great race so far today. The lowest he's fallen is second place in that GTE field after just one off track and was able to gain it back incredibly quickly. So a great day for him. On board, John Taylor Tammy now for Rebellion Racing. Driver change for that team led to John Taylor Tammy getting behind the wheel of that number 3. Currently sitting 9th in the LMP2 field. 109.56, their fastest time of the day. Currently sitting in between Matthew Overton and Chip Witt. Looking to get further up through the top 10 as that number 3 works their way through the two tight right-handers and back through the S's goes David Williams for VRS Satellite Racing. Now the gap, 1.8 seconds, and now a GTE car separates the two as they work their way up the hill.
That's one of the SimHQ Motorsports Corvettes. I believe that's car number 34, which would mean that's the number 2 of Nolan Kinslow, who's behind the wheel of that Corvette. Of course, that team in that car is trying to see if they can have a shot of being one of the top podium teams in the point standings. They're currently tied for second with their sister car in third as we watch David Williams hunting down the TNT Racing Carbon of Everett Paddock. About 1.8 seconds separates the two as they approach turn number 10.
On board Jack Christie for Renault Alpine Racing.
Jack Christie has made up some ground right now on Justin Hess. It's now down to 9/10 of a second between the two. It was at 3 seconds at one point. Lap traffic must be playing a major factor for Justin Hess right now as he is struggling to see if he can have what it takes to hold on if he gets around one of the Can-Am Canucks as they dive it down into turn 10A, 10B. into the braking zone, hits his marks, hits the curb just right to get the best exit off, and is still able to maintain the race lead as Chrissy goes a little too wide, clips the grass, but is able to hold on.
Chrissy trying all he can to catch up to Justin Hess. You can see the LMP2 car of John Taylor Tammy and Rebellion Racing going right on by all these GTEs, and one GTE separating the two leaders. They let them go by. Now Hess and Chrissy only separated by an LMP2 that will go right on by the Unified Performance Racing Machine. And they'll continue to race for that top spot. And speaking of top spot LMP2 up for grabs between Williams and Paddock. Still trying to chase down Paddock is Williams, but he made up a lot of time last time by 110.06 for Paddock, 109.42 for Williams.
Here they come, working through the S's. Paddock still has a great line through as we see what happens out of turn 5. Gets a little bit over the curbing, still maintains the spot. 1.3 seconds now as they approach the short chute heading into turn number 6. Here you are on board with Williams. Hits turn 6, apex just great. Now through turn 7. Hits his marks just fine. Car off. That's looks like to be one of the WWZ red LMP2 cars. Still able to get through down the back straightaway. Still at 1.3 seconds down this straightaway heading into turns 9 and 10. As you see, that is the WWZ red. I believe Robert Cottle is in the car now. As we watch on. Nope, Chip Witt still behind the wheel.
Taking a look at a replay, looks to be Chip Witt in the WWZ red machine. See exactly what happens to the 10th place runner currently in LMP2. Worked his way down the hill into the S's and right on back up. See exactly what happened to that machine. Down the straightaway, heading to the two tight right-handers at the back half of the racetrack. Did he get the power down a little bit too quickly here? Yes, he did. Same incident we've seen from about 3 different drivers now. Same exact thing, getting the power down a little bit too early there, but we have cars in the pit lane, Taylor Burris, including all of our leaders for LMP2.
We certainly do. Remember, we talked about this with James Andrew about this. Could we be seeing the possible driver change during these pit stops? Keep an eye on your race leader. Scott McIntyre is in the car for TNT Racing Carbon, as Paul Darling should probably be getting behind the wheel. And there goes the VRS Satellite Racing, and David Williams is still going to be in the car. So no driver change just yet. So a big change in strategy call for the VRS Satellite Racing, not using the driver change at this time.
Yeah, so that driver change was taken for TNT Racing Carbon. Scott McIntyre now behind the wheel of the car. Leif Peterson also taking a driver change. He'll be behind the wheel of the Imperial Motorsports Shake Machine. Jimmy Hume taking a driver change. He's behind the wheel of the Pneumatic Motorsports Purple car. Waiting to see if we'll see any more driver changes. Gabriel Albano now behind the wheel of the Jakes Racing Machine. Douglas Hintz now behind the wheel of DDM Racing's car. And everybody else still waiting to make their way into the pit lane for LMP2.
They certainly are trying to make their way into the pits, as you see David Williams pulling away now to see if he can expand on this race lead. So that way the next time they come down for pit road, when they do the driver change, they will have that advantage. As we also know that TNT did take tires as well, so that could also come into strategy for these drivers later in the going.
David Williams running a great race right now for VRS Satellite Racing. Hasn't been caught up in pit stop mistakes or really any mistakes on the racetrack, and now back into the lead. 24.5 seconds the gap between first and second. You're on board with second place right now. TNT Racing Carbon, Scott McIntyre. Great run for Williams. Now we'll get to see what McIntyre can do about that gap now behind the wheel of the TNT Racing Carbon number 82.
We certainly will. Currently, right now, the gap between your seconds, so needs open.
Working his way back through the S's. Something interesting that is happening with that pit stop. TNT Racing Carbon did not take any time, or they did take tires. So tires were taken for TNT Racing Carbon and Scott McIntyre. And we'll see exactly if anybody else decides to take tires as well on that pit stop from everybody else in the field. We're hearing also the Can-Am Canucks GTE of David Lidke in third place for GTE. Tires might be beginning to fade on that car, which will mean they need to come in and grab a brand new set of tires.
They certainly will too, as we see the Can-Am right here, car 121. As he is trying to see if he can make up some ground. That's Drew Ledecky. As more of the LMP2 field, Dave Hasser in the Kraft Dinner Racing now behind the wheel of that number 43 P2 car.
Out he goes, now behind the wheel of the Kraft Dinner Racing mac and cheese machine.
Are you hungry every time you see that car?
I do get a little bit hungry. You're correct about that. It's a nice looking car, though.
It is. It probably is one of the nicest.
So Chip Witt for WWZ Racing is also in the pit lane in the 79. Robert Cottle will hop into that car. Driver change for them. Penguin RC Complex Simworks making a driver change too. Christian Ost in the car now. So I believe, other than David Williams for VRS Satellite Racing and Nick Kuhn for Hard Promises Racing, everybody has made a driver change so far this race. Or sorry, Jason Lundy, you can also put him in there for Pneumatic Motorsports Blue. 3 teams not making a driver change yet for LMP2.
Is the case. We'll keep an eye on what happens as we watch on the race lead here. That's going to be the Dave pulling away now as they head up towards the speedway.
Huge train of cars as they work their way through the S's right now, and quickly down the hill and back to the chicane they'll go. Williams chasing down an LMP2 up ahead of him. He'll try and go right on around that lapped machine. Side by side as they head back through the final corner. Right on around goes David Williams, keeps the lead and gets by the lapped machine. And McIntyre still sitting in second place. Gained a handful of time, 29.8 seconds the gap now between him and Williams. So not exactly where he wants to be, but not in a bad spot either, as he doesn't have any pressure behind him. It's a solid 20-something seconds back to Jason Lundy for Pneumatic Motorsports Blue, who sits in third.
Certainly is the case here as we watch on and see Jack Christie trying to see if he can make some ground up on that Unified Performance Racing Ferrari, but it's still a lot of time left on the clock for Jack to see what he can do as we are approaching just about an hour left to go. We should be seeing pit stops here momentarily here for these GTE fields here in 30 minutes, and then for the P2 cars and about also 30 to 40 minutes.
On board, Jimmy Hume in the car for the first time today. Taking over in the 5th place for Pneumatic Motorsports Purple. The 2 Pneumatic Motorsports cars having 2 great days, 3rd and 5th right now, blue and purple respectively. Lundy and Hume in the car for those teams. And through the LMP2 point standings, Pneumatic Motorsports Purple and Pneumatic Motorsports Blue only separated by 4 points. With them finishing how they are here, that could influence the points and maybe have a shake-up there, especially TNT Racing Carbon tied with Pneumatic Motorsports Purple heading into today's season finale for the 4th spot in the points. And right now, Pneumatic Motorsports Purple running 2 spots under Scott McIntyre in TNT Racing Carbon.
Let's pull James Andrew up here right quick to talk about a strategy that Pneumatic Motorsports Blue did. James, they pitted earlier than most of the P2 cars and didn't take tires. Is there maybe a reason behind this strategy call?
Good question. I wonder whether it's just about because they're one of the teams that's in a good position in the championship, and then maybe they're just looking to cement a good, solid finish today. Make sure they stay ahead of their competitors, even if they're not chasing down a win. They're just sort of keeping an eye on everybody else and just playing the numbers that way, perhaps.
Very good strategy call. We'll have to see if it works out for them, James. Is there anyone else also in the field that you've been keeping an eye on that you've noticed has had a big run so far that's impressive this race?
That's an interesting one. I'm trying to look at so many people all the time. Rebellion Racing and LMP2, who caught my eye, they've just pitted, but they have been sort of putting on bursts of speed and moving back up the field and stuff. And there's a few teams that are kind of they're down the order, maybe not through their own fault, but they are performing well, and they're getting the laps in and they're moving their way up slowly, but they won't. It's one of these things where they'll never get noticed because they're down the order now, but they're actually having a really good race. So there's a few of those around, yes.
All right. Well, we look forward to seeing what they can do and what the rest of the race holds as we are approaching that 1 hour mark. James, thank you very much for that update on the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue as we continue to keep an eye on them and what their strategy as the Rebellion Racing car is on screen in that number 3 LMP2 car. Currently, they are running inside the top 10 in that 8th position, now moved up to 7th. As we see on there, John Taylor Tammy, 2 laps down from the race leaders, but still a strong performance inside the top 10.
Great day for them so far here today. Update on the battle for the lead for LMP2. Gap extending even further. So Williams doing an amazing job for VRS Satellite Racing, and Scott McIntyre still trying to get used to that TNT Racing Carbon number 82 LMP2. He's in the car for the first time today. An hour and 5 minutes remain, over halfway done in today's 2.5 hour race. And it is going to be still a long way to go. Taylor, an hour by no stretch of the imagination is short by any means.
Certainly is the case right now. An hour is still a long way to go in this race as you're on board with Jimmy Hume in the Pneumatic Motorsports Purple. We talked about their sister car with James a few moments ago as they're approaching on the back bumper of Robert Tarbox of the not Robert Tarbox, that is actually going to be Scott McIntyre in the TNT Racing Carbon as they come out of the final couple of corners and see if they can get themselves closer to unlapping themselves here at this. As the GTE car gets in front of them, that's going to cause them to check up just a little bit for Jimmy Hume and allow McIntyre to pull away.
And once again, McIntyre just trying to get used to that car. Seems like it just not cooperating for him as he's not really maintaining the gap or gaining anything on that car in front. Back to the Mac and Cheese Mobile. Dave Hussar behind the wheel. No pressure really behind or in front of him right now. He's running fairly comfortably right now. P8 in the LMP2 field as he works his way through the S's one more time. Jack Chrissy, Renault Alpine Racing, and the gap between himself and the GTE leader, possibly the closest gap on the racetrack between any cars on the same lap. It's 5 seconds in between Hess and Chrissy right now. Fairly close together in the scope of the entire race, especially as cars have spread out relatively long here at Road Atlanta. So Chrissy trying to make up that gap, but same situation with Scott McIntyre and TNT Racing Carbon, just not able to close in anything.
They certainly are not right now. We'll have to keep an eye and see what they can do once they take their final pit stop later on in today's race. But for right now, they are in by themselves trying to see if they can find a way to prepare themselves for that final pit stop.
McIntyre now dealing with a good bit of traffic in his TNT Racing Carbon LMP2, and that is GTE traffic. The GTE cars are on a good day roughly about 5 seconds slower at the top end of the leaderboard than the LMP2s, anything between 7 and 5. And here's a battle trying to get back onto the lead lap in LMP2. That's Jimmy Hume for Pneumatic Motorsports Purple, and he does so.
It's around Scott McIntyre. That's one less car he has to try to get around. Now he has to set his sights on the race leader of David Williams to get himself on the lead lap here, but he still has a long way to go right now as that Pneumatic Motorsports Purple still has to try to catch up some 29 seconds.
And that gap extending now, top 2 in LMP2. VRS Satellite Racing up 32 seconds on the TNT Racing carbon car of Scott McIntyre. Like we mentioned, still a long way to go in this race. We are only about an hour left, which is still a long ways to go, especially considering in the last hour and a half we have done 74 laps from the leader. Battle for 9th place here in GTE. David Anderson versus Mark Johnson, battling as they head down the straightaway into the chicane. 78 of David Anderson for Longhorn Racing Lone Star. Mark Johnson, last minute racing the 78 versus the 57. Ferrari versus BMW down into the chicane.
Certainly is, and we'll see right now. Last minute racing of Mark Johnson tries to get the good run off of turn number 10B, but can't quite make it work. Through turns number 12, tries to get the run he needs, but still not close enough. Down the front straightaway, heading into turn 1. We will see the Longhorn Racing hold the line here as they approach turn 1. A little wide for him. That could allow Johnson, though, to turns 2 and 3 into the braking zone, heading down through the S's as you're on board. Now back on screen, Johnson as well. You see those two battling it out with Anderson through the S's approaching turn 5.
Running close together, we've talked about it. It's one thing catching the car in front, it's a completely different thing to try and get past it. Through the double right-handers, hard on the brakes for this one. Don't get that power down too quickly, could end up into that inside wall. On board, Mark Johnson for last minute racing in the BMW, looking to catch up to the Ferrari in front. Not able to get close enough to make a move. Will he go for a dive into the chicane? Just under an hour left in this race. Did not go for the dive. He'll stay in P10, but they continue to battle for 9th as they head through the final corner. Can he get an advantage on the inside?
He's going to try as they come out of the final corner. Johnson still not around there through here in turn 1. You see Anderson having the best line heading through to try to get a guest defensive the setup for turns 2 and 3 right now as they approach turns 2 and 3. Lead lap cars to traffic as we now see Gabe Albano, the Jigster P2 in heavy battle with Racing's Nicholas Heinz.
Here comes the move, going to the inside as they head into the double right-handers. The BMW to the inside in GTE. He takes that spot away. Mark Johnson now up to P9 in GTE as we hop up to a battle in LMP2. Gabriel Albano we're watching now for Jakester Racing. Not a lot of battles going on around him. He's trying to catch up to the DDM Racing car of Douglas Hintz further up the road in the 61. But nothing going on right now for Gabriel Albano. Fastest lap for him, 1:10.53.
Here they come, right, keeping an eye on the Jakester Racing, the car without a Jake, as we like to call it here, as he is working his way up through turn number 5, having a decent run in that 9th position. We'll see if he can find a way to work up a little further up the field as they continue on. Still no changes up in the race lead. It's about 34-second gap between TNT Racing Carbon and the VRS Satellite team, as TNT Racing Carbon is pretty much by himself as well. 22 seconds back before you get to the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue of Jason Lundy. Really quiet throughout the field. No major battles, as everyone's just trying to get ready for those final set of pit stops.
And those pit stops will be coming relatively soon as the clock continues to wind its way down here in the season finale for the series. Everybody anticipating the championships being crowned, and we already pretty much know who's going to be the two champions for the two classes, but there's a good amount of positions further down and a good amount of battles in the points. The finalized points standings are going to look a lot different than they did when we entered into Road Atlanta here tonight.
As we watch on throughout the rest of the field, all the field is being quiet, just trying to get through here, as the SimHQ number 3 driver has a new driver in their car. That's Paul Hale, whose mission is hunting down his teammate for third position. And looking at the times right now, he is about half a second quicker than his sister car of Nolan Kinslet. Oh, big trouble for Paul Hale as he has went off, got a contact between, looks like one of the LMP2 cars, the Christopher Pye and Leif Peterson.
Replay on your screen right now. What happened? Here comes Williams to go around in the LMP2. No contact between those two. There's another LMP2 with the 90 right behind. Did the door close a little bit too quickly? It did. Just closed a little bit too quickly. Maybe some connection issues there also going to contribute to that incident. But either way, Paul Hale with just some slight contact between him and the LMP2 behind. Not sure exactly who that LMP2 was. Just slight contact. The door closed a little bit too quickly, and around they went. Nothing really could have been done by either party there.
Through on that matter, unfortunately, though, as one of the other drivers is trying to get through. That looked like to be one of the Longhorn Racing cars trying to check up. Here comes Leif Peterson, another PCA Sim Racing member, trying to get through as we're on the instant replay still. More of another angle. As there you'll see the contact on board right there. Of course, Peterson tried his best to not make too much and then makes another contact with him as well as on Longhorn Racing.
Hopefully no damage to Leif Peterson's number 913 either. Is that it wasn't hard contact by any means, but if he has damage to that front end, doesn't look like he does. He's good to go. Not going to need to use his fast repair or grab any repairs in the pit lane at all. On board now with Leif Peterson as he works his way into the chicane. He has roughly about 20 some odd seconds up to 40 some odd seconds up to second place. Scott McIntyre for TNT Racing Carbon as they continue to race on the track. There's Scott McIntyre for TNT Racing Carbon. 35 seconds now back from your race leader, David Williams. The VRS Satellite Racing car checks out from the rest of the field here with 54 minutes to go.
It certainly is as we continue to watch on David Williams. Remember, we still have one more pit stop for these drivers in LMP2, as well as a driver change for the VRS Satellite Racing team for David Williams and Paul Darling. So keep that in mind as they continue on.
On board, Mark Johnson, last minute racing for GTE. Now looking back at Paul Hamilton. This is the battle between Hamilton and Mark Johnson in the 77 and the 57. Remember earlier, I believe there was a battle between these two earlier on in the race, and Hamilton was the all-ball racing car was able to get the advantage there. It wasn't Hamilton in the car now. This was the first driver change for this team of the day. As they race now out of the final corner, very close together. Will they be able to make a move heading into turn number 1 here in this battle? On board, Mark Johnson, not going to get close enough to make the move as they head back into 1 and through the S's.
As they make their way through the S's right now, you're on board with them. The Last minute racing BMW just trying to put the pressure on the all balls racing Corvette. Down the S's they go before they climb up the hill through turn number 5 as they approach. Here comes a good run by Mark Johnson down the short chute heading into turn 6. Will he try to take the advantage going the inside lane? He is going to stick his nose there side by side and complete the pass.
A great pass there for Mark Johnson to go right on by Paul Hamilton. Now he's going to try and work his way further up the field to Team Brake Fade's James Foster, currently sitting in 6th place, but 1 spot gain for last minute racing, now up to P7 in the GTE class.
He certainly is on the move right now as they get by those 2 of all balls and last minute racing. The 79 of Robert Cottle trying to get his way up through the field, currently in that 11th position to see if he can catch up to Doug Hines in the DDM Racing in 10th position. He is a lap back from him, so it's going to be a lot of work.
A lot of work indeed to catch up. On board, David Williams, your leader for LMP2. BRS Satellite Racing number 67. 38 seconds the gap between 1st and 2nd place. And now on board, Christian Ost sits in 7th for Penguin RC Complex Simworks, and he has the leader, David Williams, behind him, so put him another lap down. I believe, looking at my timing screen, only 2 cars are now left on the lead lap. That is your 2 leaders in LMP2, Williams and Scott McIntyre.
Certainly are, as we watch these 2 right now. David Williams working through lap traffic as he comes up to the back bumper of the Penguin RC Simworks LMP2 car. Currently in the car, Christian Ost is behind that wheel as they come out of turn number 1.
Focusing on now, Christian Ost in the 153. Currently running in 7th place, fastest lap 110.20 for that number 153 Dallara LMP2. Here's another look, David Williams working his way past GTE traffic. He has had to deal with a lot of that today.
Quick update on one of the pneumatic motorsports blue. Jason Lundy has recently come down pit road. They have decided to change out those tires. They started to give way. So James Stacy is behind the wheel right now in that number 4 and 5th spot. We'll see if he's able to make tracks on the field, as we should also be seeing the LMP2s coming down pit road in the next few minutes. The GTE cars, we should expect them here any minute now.
The GTE and an LMP2 go sparring their way into the S's once again. That GTE is Jack Chrissy, the LMP2, James Stacy for Renault Alpine Racing and Pneumatic Motorsports Blue, respectively. Chrissy 8.5 seconds back from your race leader for GTE, Justin Hess, in Unified Performance Sim Racing. Something interesting, taking a look at the timing screen, the top 3 in both GTE and LMP2 in their classes completely unchanged from when we dropped the green flag.
As we watch on and see Justin Hess, remember he also has to do a driver change as well over to Kurt Poulter on his final pit stop, which should be happening here pretty soon for the driver. In fact, Paul Hale in the SimHQ Motorsports number 3 has just come down pit road not too long ago, and in fact is getting ready to service on his Corvette.
So the first couple of GTEs starting to trickle their way down into the pit lane. GTE cars, if they stop now, will be good to the end. So pitting now means that this is the last pit stop for GTEs, for a last planned pit stop at least, for the GTE field if they were to come in right now. Which we're expecting everybody to at least come in one more time. And we'll see if anybody else gonna elect to come down early, or if they're gonna try and extend this run a little bit later into the race.
Simultaneously, currently cars lap in the TNT Racing Carbon. And second, VR David race leader now as we on and as field.
Doesn't seem like any other takers from GTE. We have one taker from LMP2. Not sure if this is scheduled or not, but it is Gabriel Albano for Jakester Racing in the 8. Very, very strange. I don't know if this is scheduled for LMP2s, but if it is, we'll definitely see a lot more LMP2s start to trickle their way into the pits as well. So there's a good look at the 8. Back up to your leader, David Williams, in the VRS Satellite Racing car. 45 seconds the gap now between first and second place. He has extended it by 10 seconds now on the track. So we might have had a spin a couple of moments ago from the Craft Dinner Racing number 43 of David Hussar. See if we can see exactly what happened to the number 43 and where exactly the spin occurred. Up through the S's, down the straightaway, heading into the double right-handers. Was it the same spot that we have seen multiple cars go spinning today? Yes, it was. Locked up the brakes heading into the corner. Good thing, though, he kept it under control. Stopped it right in the middle of the apex and was able to keep on going. So, not the end of the day for the Craft Dinner Racing mac and cheese machine of David Hussar. They'll keep going, and they didn't lose any spots either. Still sitting in P8. On board, Scott McIntyre for TNT Racing Carbon, trying to work his way to your race leader, but that gap, 45 seconds in between the two, just trying to work his way through the field and trying to stay on the lead lap. He's the only car other than your leader to be on the lead lap at the moment. We are getting word from our race analyst James Andrew that Jakester Racing is off sequence. They emptied the tank and they're going to need a splash of fuel later on in the race before the checkered flag. So an unscheduled pit stop for that GTE machine, sorry, that LMP2 machine. We should see more start to trickle their way in later on in the race once the scheduled pit stops begin.
Certainly is the case as we keep an eye on that, and they continue to push on through. 45 minutes left to go in the race here today as they work their way down towards turns 6 and 7 as the Jakester Racing car is still pushing through, heading into those final set of corners down the back straightaway with the DDM car right behind him as he will see the slipstream come into play.
On board, Douglas Hintz trying to chase down the Craft Dinner Racing number 43 of Dave Hussar, about 7 seconds up the road, working his way around the Jakester Racing machine that just came down into the pit lane unscheduled. He goes right on by. Sun's starting to come back out. We saw a bit of cloud cover midway through the race, and now with about 45 minutes left, starting to see some more sun peek through the mostly cloudy skies here at Road Atlanta. And we'll see as we enter into 11:20 sim time. We're entering into the early afternoon. Will we see any changes in the track temperature? We have up to 87 degrees Fahrenheit now, 67 degrees air temp, 87 degrees on the track temp. So it's track starting to heat up, Taylor, as they work their way through the final minutes of this race.
They certainly are. As the track temperature heats up, the competition will heat up even more so. This will provide the excitement we need and the closing stages of today's race. Who will come out on top? Will it be the dominant drivers of United Performance Racing and VRS Satellite Racing? Or will it be some newcomers to finally break the hold on these two teams here today? We'll find out in the closing stages here for the iRacing Team Endurance Series powered by Champion Motorsports, live from the Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Keeping an eye on some battles here on the track. It's been pretty quiet for the most part, but a couple of drivers should be coming down pit road As we brought out the Jakester Racing car, also came down pit road, along with the Pneumatic Motorsports Purple, also just coming down pit road a lap ago. Jimmy Hume still behind the wheel of that car.
Drivers waiting on pit stops to start to begin for both LMP2 and GTE. David Williams still leads the way, 43 seconds the gap there. There he goes, working his way out of the right-hander, back down the back straightaway into the chicane one more time. He has still the fastest lap of the race, 108.68. I believe he also has all purple sector times for sectors 1, 2, and 3. Blazing fast LMP2 for VRS Satellite Racing here today.
He is definitely blazing through the field, through the competition, and setting up the fastest laps of the race. In fact, his fastest lap was a 108.679. So he is definitely picking him up, putting him down. His last time was a little bit of a rough one, a 114.03. We'll see what his last lap time was as he just came across the line, a 109.692. Almost exactly a second faster than Scott McIntyre. As the GTE leaders are coming down pit road.
First pit stop starting to trickle their way in for GTE. Chrissy stays out, Hess comes in, so Unified Performance Racing going to lead the GTE field down into the pit lane here as we have 41 minutes to go.
Certainly is, as Jack Chrissy takes over the race lead. After that with Justin Hess. Of course, Hess does have to come down pit road to do a driver change. Kurt Poulter should be getting behind the wheel. As it is now official, Kurt Poulter is behind the wheel of that red Ferrari to rejoin the track to see if they can sweep this entire season. Tires also going on that Ferrari as well.
Multiple LMP2s and GTEs snaking their way up the hill here at Road Atlanta. Waiting on a couple more GTE cars to work their way into the pit lane. Hearing a bit of a long pit stop from Unified Racing. Will that change anything? Chrissy is in for Renault Alpine Racing. Unified Performance Racing did not go a lap down on that pit stop, but they are about a full minute behind Chrissy in the Renault Alpine Racing. Kurt Poulter now behind the wheel of the Unified Performance Racing number 37 Ferrari. Will we see a driver change for Renault Alpine Racing? Yes, we will. Francois Brou now behind the wheel of the number 69. Paul Hale for CMHQ Motorsports 3 now assumes second place, and Kurt Poulter for Unified Performance Racing grabs the lead back.
Here they come working down into Kurt Poulter, heading down into turn 10A, 10B. Will he retain the race lead once he completes the pit stop cycle? He's right here coming out of turn 10 underneath the Fox Factory Bridge, as well as it comes to the final set of corners. Where is Francois Brou? As here comes Poulter across the line. Francois Brou still on pit road. New race leader is Kurt Poulter.
There goes Francois Brou right outside of the pit stall in his Renault Alpine Racing number 69. Lost a decent bit of time on that stop, but we'll see exactly how it'll work out when everybody else comes in. We're still waiting on Paul Hale, Brian Van Buzicone, Tim Collier, James Foster, actually James Collier did come down into the pit lane, so he's good to go. Foster still needs to come in. Hamilton, Anderson, multiple other cars still waiting on them here in the GTE field.
Certainly is the case, as we'll see who else in the GT field will be coming down pit road here momentarily. We should be seeing some more of them here in the next lap or two. Last Minute Racing's Mark Johnson, Team Brake Fades, James Foster, Paul Hamilton's All Balls Racing, and David Anderson Longhorn Racing. Some of the next cars that need to come down in the GTE field, as we also have to keep an eye on the LMP2 drivers, as they should be coming down pit road here in the next 5 to 10 minutes.
On board now with one of your LMP2 machines, working their way back onto the front straightaway. That is Douglas Hintz for DDM Racing, sits in 9th place. And you can see the Crafted Dinner Racing machine of Dave Hussar right in front of him in the 43, battling as they head into the S's. A little bit of GT3 traffic up ahead. They go right on by, split him through the middle, and right around on the inside goes the DDM Racing car of Douglas Hintz.
How about that set of driving right there for Douglas Hintz to get around those drivers? Let's get a look at that replay right here. Here's Eric Mahoney in the Craft Dinner Racing LMP2. Douglas Hintz coming in hot pursuit of him, coming out of turn 1, climbing up the hill. There is Francois Brou in the Renault Alpine Corvette. As they approach down through the S's, Hintz goes down to the inside, splits the Corvette, and takes the position.
An incredible move from Hintz to grab that spot. Hussar now falls to number 9 on the field in the 43 Craft Dinner Racing machine. And now leaders starting to come in for LMP2. Liam Rant's gonna hop in the car for VRS Satellite Racing, and TNT Racing Carbon Scott McIntyre brings his car into the pit lane.
Final set of pit stops for these drivers in the LMP2. Liam Rantz now also new to the series here, as he will take over from David Williams. Scott McIntyre right behind him on pit road, but here comes Liam Rantz out of pit road to continue on his way here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. And as the field cycles through for these final set of pit stops, it is time to bring you the final Penguin RC race report. Of course, if you need anything related to sim racing, make sure to visit Penguin RC for all of your simulation racing needs. Currently up at the front of the field in LMP2 is Liam Rantz. After just completing a pit stop here momentarily, he is your race leader and is pulling away from the field in a dominant fashion, as David Williams had to serve a penalty, fight his way back up through the field to regain the race lead. In second, the Imperial Motorsports Shake of Leif Peterson having a quiet run inside the podium finishing positions here today, looking to see if he can hold on to second place here today. In third, you will find TNT Racing Carbon Scott McIntyre, who led the majority of the race until those last set of pit stops here today, as they were having a great run early on. In fourth, Pneumatic Motorsports Blue of James Stacy, trying some different strategy, as they were the longest ones who have pitted back 19 laps ago, so we'll see if they're able to find a way to make up ground on their competition. Fifth place, the sister car, Jimmy Hume in the Pneumatic Motorsports Purple, trying to see if he can catch up to his sister car to get inside closer in the top 5 for that 4th spot, but currently in a quiet position right now. In 6th place, Rebellion Racing, looking for their best finish of the season right now. John Taylor Tamming having a great run in that number 3 LMP2 car. They are the second car 1 lap down, but looking to see if they can get more before the race is over. In 7th position, Penguin RC Complex Simworks. Christian Oss now is in the 7th spot, having a quiet night. Has been up inside the top 5 at one point during the race, but has not been able to regain after some miscues early on, as he'll come down pit road. Eighth spot, Dave Hasser in the Craft Dinner Racing, now actually Douglas Heinz in the DDM Racing, is currently sitting there as he is having a very interesting strong run in the top 10 for the majority of the race. Back in ninth, WWZ Red, Robert Cottle inside the top 10, 3 laps down from the race leader after having some off tracks throughout the duration of today's race. Rounding out your top 10, in the 10th position is Dave Hasser in the Craft Dinner Racing, and that LMP2 has had a couple of offs throughout the race but has been able to recover with a top 10 finish here today. 11th in class is Gabriel Albano in the Jakester Racing. Tough break for them as they're having some incidences on track, but they will continue to battle it out to see if they can get a top 10 finish. 12th position is Hard Promise Racing's Javier Perez Torres. Nick Kuhn was in the car earlier, and they've had some tough luck, tough breaks, and unfortunate circumstances here as they are trying to see if they can come out with a better run before next season. 13th is Kevin Carter in the ADR A Endurance. They have had a tough break as well as they've had some issues early in the beginning but are still not able to overcome what incidents they have had. And Joshua, let's take a look at the GTE field.
Kurt Poulter takes over in the Unified Performance Racing car, trying to bring it home for their 5th and final win of the season here in the season finale. Francois Brou takes over for Renault Alpine Racing in the 69, trying to work over that gap now. That is 28 seconds between first and second place. How much will he be able to make up under green flag? Paul Hale, SimHQ Motorsports 3 ahead of SimHQ Motorsports 2, breaking the tie in the point standings. Hale sits in 3rd place, up 2 spots from where they originally started the race. Brian Van Buzicombe sits in 4th, SimHQ Motorsports 2 car. 1:16.111, their fastest lap of the race. Heading down to round out your top 5, Tim Collier for Can-Am Canucks in their Chevy Corvette. 2nd through 5th in GTE is all Corvettes with the leader of a Ferrari, running out your top 5. James Foster for Team Brake Fade in 6th place in their BMW. It's a trio of BMWs for 6th, 7th, and 8th. The next BMW on the track, Mark Johnson for Last Minute Racing, sitting in 7th place. Brian Sabelski sits in 8th place in the number 85 for Can-Am Express. Back to another Corvette with Paul Hamilton and All Balls Racing, trying to rebound after some incidents earlier on today. David Anderson, Longhorn Racing Lone Star, rounds out your top 10 through GTE. Leonard Burke for Triple R Racing in the pits at the moment in their number 71 Ferrari for their scheduled pit stop. Larry Ford for Longhorn Racing sitting in 12th, just finishing their pit stop. Warren McGarry also in the pit lane in MMTR, taking over that car for the remaining stint. And then Michael Ogren with some issues in the NGP Motorsports machine off track, along with Vinny Lima for Team VVL Systems.
And with that, that concludes your Penguin RC race report. And with that, make sure to visit penguinrc.com for high-quality, affordable simulation products for all of your sim racing needs. Penguin RC Simulations. As with that, we are going to take a quick commercial break, but when we come back, we are going to bring you the final closing minutes here of the iRacing Team Endurance Series powered by Champion Motorsports. Welcome back to coverage of Champion Motorsports iRacing Team Endurance Series live from Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta. Myself, Taylor Burris, Joshua Lee, and Ryan Bauer bringing you all the pictures, sights, and sounds and storylines here as we are in the season finale of the iRacing Team Endurance Series. But don't worry, we're coming back in 2022, and looking at that schedule that you just saw in the commercial, Josh, it's going to be an exciting one.
Oh, it will be. It is some of the best road courses on iRacing, and it's going to be exciting mainly because now these drivers know what to expect. They know what to do, and will we see the domination that we saw this season from BRS Satellite Racing and Unified Performance Racing next season? I'm not so sure.
Well, we'll have to find out as the season opener kicks off at the World Center of Racing in Daytona in 2022. So stay tuned, follow CMS for all of your information, and who knows, if you're interested, make sure to go check them out and sign up maybe to see if we will see you on the track next season. Right now, you're looking at the Penguin RC SimWorks, and speaking of Complex SimWorks, Joshua, we got to give a big thank you to Complex as well.
We certainly do need to give a big thanks to Complex SimWorks. If you're looking for affordable sim racing accessories for your rig, check out Complex SimWorks. They offer 3D printing and custom design services for your sim racing setup at affordable prices. And Complex SimWorks has many new products in development. Head over to their website at complex-simworks.com. Once again, complex-simworks.com, complex-simworks.com, and see how you can upgrade your racing rig.
As we watch Christian Oss there battling, holding on to that 6th position in car 153, having a quiet run inside the top 10 all race long. Those drivers in the point standings right now, currently sitting, I would believe, if we look at the LMP2 points, they are sitting in 14th in the point standings. They missed out at Monza, but have had a couple of decent runs at Daytona, Sebring, and Le Mans. Their worst finish was actually at Le Mans, but as they sit right now in 14th, with how things are going, they could actually bump up maybe inside the top 10 after these other drivers have had not the best races.
A lot of drivers struggling on the racetrack here today. We talked about Road Atlanta not exactly being the easiest track to navigate and relatively difficult when you really get onto it. Easy on the surface, difficult when you start trying to learn this track. So a good bit of cars just having a little bit of damage on a lot of them here today. Coming into the pits just a moment ago, Pneumatic Motorsports Purple and Jimmy Hume, fuel only for that car, so no damage, just came in, grabbed the top off of fuel, and went right on back to the racetrack. So not sure what happened there, but they are currently running in P5. That moves Pneumatic Motorsports Blue up into 4th place, and now the top 4 in LMP2 completely unchanged from where they began the day. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, exactly the same since the drop of the green flag.
As they work their way through, keeping an eye on a couple of drivers right now. The Pneumatic Motorsports Purple and Jimmy Hume still holds on to that 5th spot as you're on board with Larry Ford from Longhorn Racing. Now, Joshua, to fill you in on some information, there was this ongoing battle between the CMS team as well as the Longhorn Racing team of who would come out on top in the championship running order, mostly in the GTE field. But looking at how things are going right now, I think it's safe to say the CMS team has had the better cars this season, and interested to see who ends up winning that bet that David Anderson as well as none other than Doug Atkinson had put themselves together on at the beginning of the season. So I have to give a little quick nudge on that matter as you're on board with Paul Hale in the SimHQ Motorsports 3 Corvette.
And he is currently catching up to the 2nd place driver, Renault Alpine Racing's Francois Brou. Currently the gap 2 seconds in between these two. Will the SimHQ Motorsports 3 machine be able to move further up the field? They are already breaking the tie in the points between their teammates, SimHQ Motorsports 2, the sister car, so to speak, with Paul Hale behind the wheel. Now we'll see, Brian Van Busekilm behind the wheel of the SimHQ Motorsports 2 car. SimHQ Motorsports 3 has Paul Hale behind the wheel, currently catching up to Francois Brou.
He certainly is. Francois Brou starting to lose ground on that second place position. Can he find a way to hold on for the next 22 minutes as they work their way through the final set of corners? Here they come out of the final set of corners. Paul Hale in hot pursuit, taking a look at the times between those two drivers. A 1:17 for Francois Brou and a 1:16.4 for Paul Hale. So give the favor over to Paul Hale in that SimHQ Motorsports Corvette.
Taking a look further back in the GTE field with the number 57 machine of Mark Johnson for last minute racing, trying to bump their way up into further up the field, and they did keep their tires on the last minute car, so they are still running on the same tires from that last pit stop and recovering back up into 6th place, looking for 5th place, but they're going to be looking for a while. About a minute 46 separating Tim Coulier and Mark Johnson, and about a lap separating them as well.
As we keep an eye on these drivers here in the closing laps, some great camera angles that we see here from our producer Ryan Bauer to let you all see this as well. Cameras provided by Dougie Beer, of course, but our producer Ryan Bauer helping to make sure everyone here watching sees these great sights and sound. Contact actually right there between Larry Ford as well as the Hard Promise Racing of Javier Perez Torres. Tough break for the Hard Promise Racing team. I think they need to hopefully scratch this race off and get ready for Daytona. Take a look at the race replay here. You see Torres just getting by Larry Ford, no problems whatsoever. As they get into the braking zone, Larry Ford just absolutely misses the braking point, hits the rear bumper of Torres, and sends him flying down the S's. Ford also having to take the escape road as well, and almost for Torres comes back up in front of traffic.
Another instance of contact on the track. We've seen a good amount of it today, especially right there in the S's. And that sent them both around. No major damage to either of the cars, which is a great thing. But they're able to stay on the track, keep on battling with 20 minutes left. We started with 2.5 hours, down to 20 minutes. Taylor, time running out for a lot of drivers, and they're going to need to put a capitalization on this race if they're going to want to get out of here with a good finish. And there's a lot of drivers trying to also jump a couple of spots in the point standings before the checkered flag comes out.
A lot of positions in the point standing still up for grabs for a lot of drivers in the LMP2 class here as we watch on the Rebellion Racing P2 car. Having a great run in 7th place, trying to see if he can catch up to the Penguin RC Complex Simworks to get into 6 spots as they work their way through. There's Francois Brou in heavy P2 traffic.
And a swap in position for Francois Brou and Renault Alpine Racing and SimHQ Motorsports 3. They swap positions, so that means Hale was able to get by Francois Brou and Renault Alpine Racing, number 69, but the 56 for SimHQ Motorsports 3 up into 2nd place. Still a while to go before he catches your leader, Kurt Poulter, for Unified Performance Racing. 40 seconds up the road is that number 37 Ferrari. It is safe to say Unified Performance Racing is on a great run right now and looking to go 5 for 5 this season in GTE.
That's what it certainly does look like indeed, Josh, as we watch on Kurt Poulter continuing to hold on to his race lead by himself, just absolutely dominating for him and Justin Hess. They had a couple of close calls as they battled with the Renault Alpine Racing Corvette, but they have come out on top. And as the red Ferrari finally thunders down the back straightaway here at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta.
On board with Liam Rance, your new leader. From the pit stops, they've made the driver swap, put him in the car for VRS Satellite Racing, extending the gap even further. 54.5 seconds separate your leader and Scott McIntyre for TNT Racing Carbon. On board, Gabriel Albano for Jakester Racing in 11th place. Looks rather slow on the straightaway. Might just be letting those lead LMP2s go by, because that is two much faster machines, including your leader, VRS Satellite Racing, Liam Rance.
He certainly has put up the performance here of a race. This entire team, VRS Satellite Racing, of David Williams, Paul Darling, and now Liam Rance, who's running him this race today, if so amazing, so dominating. Of course, they have a lot of heavy hitter drivers on this team. I've actually had the privilege, Josh, to work with a couple of them, drivers such as Cy Andra, as well as Daniel Morad, who are major competitors in the world of sports car racing, as whether it be in the technical side or the driving side. This team knows a thing or two about racing here in sports cars, whether it be P2s or GT cars.
And they're showing that they also have it in the sim as well. Not a lot of people can say that they have it in real life and have it in the sim. VRS Satellite Racing seems to be one of them. Scott McIntyre still sits in second place, 55 seconds behind as your leader makes his way through a lot of traffic in front of him. Looking back to GTE, the SimHQ Motorsports 2 machine of Brian Van Buzicombe is lapping fast enough to catch up to the Renault Alpine Racing car of Francois Bruce. So what is going on to that Renault Alpine Racing machine, falling like a lead balloon now here through the GTE field, already down to third, might go down to fourth before the end of this race.
It's a very interesting situation right now for this team, who's had a strong run since the drop of the green flag, even leading for a period of time in this race, as Brian Van Buzicombe is catching up and quickly to the back bumper of Francois Bru. We'll see what the lap times are as they come across the line here. It's a 1:17.45 compared to a 1:16.6, so just shy of a second difference between the two. Give the advantage to SimHQ Motorsports 2.
On board with one of the LMP2 drivers, Douglas Hintz for DDM Racing goes right on by one of the lapped machines, and that was fourth position with Andrew Cheslock for Rebellion Racing. And Rebellion Racing has a little bit of damage on that car that we are also hearing, possibly an incident with that number 61, or sorry, the number 3, a little bit earlier on today. You can see the damage to that right side, it looks like. He's lapping slower, lost that position. We might see them come down pit road if it gets worse, but they are currently scored in 8th place, and around they go. They threw the right-hander once again.
Here they come. As they come out of the corner, you'll see those two do battle once again as they head down the back straightaway through turn 9 and heading to turn number 10. You will see this battle between WWZ as well as the Rebellion Racing. Could this be incidental between these two drivers? We'll find out as they dive it into turn 10. The number 3 trying to see if he can find a way. Cheslock can't find his way. Hintz as well as Robert Cottle actually is in front of him right now as they work out of the final set of corners to continue on. Less than 15 minutes to go.
It's all going to come down to these final 15 minutes. Liam Rance continues to lead the way for VRS Satellite Racing. There is your other leader in GTE, Kurt Poulter for Unified Performance Racing. A bit ceremonial. They're running so close on the racetrack right now. Taylor, not only are both of them leading the race, they're both leading each other's point standings. The GTE point standings led by Unified Performance Racing. LMP2 point standings led by VRS Satellite Racing. So it's pretty cool to see both of them now so close on the racetrack with only 14 minutes not only left here in the race from Road Atlanta, but in the season for the iRacing Team Endurance Series.
Close call right there between the LMP2 and the GTE leader right there as they came out of turn 5, as that was a close one, almost contact between the two, but they were able to continue on and move on through the rest of the race here. Keep an eye and see what as we have a replay of DDM's pass Poor position that caught as they spun out, actually. Car 61 of DDM, actually making contact with the 34 of the CMHQ Motorsports 2 Corvette. That's Brian Van Buscone who had an incident right there.
Wasn't expecting a mistake from the CMHQ Motorsports 2. We just talked about it a little bit earlier on. They were lapping faster than the Renault Alpine car, trying to catch up to them, and then they get just turned around, the same spot that everybody has been spinning today, and made contact with the number 61 for DDM Racing. So unfortunate for that number 61 machine of Douglas Hinsel. Rebound, still scored in 7th place. Andrew Cheslock for Rebellion Racing a little bit closer, not within striking distance, as they have a GTE BMW in between the two.
Certainly does, as they have 12 minutes left to go in this race here, the closing stage of this race. As you see, our second place driver of Scott McIntyre over a minute behind Liam Rance in the VRS Satellite Racing team. A tough break for this team, as they had led a dominating race for the most part in the beginning after the penalty that VRS had to serve, but unfortunately their strategy with VRS was able to stay them out in front of the field once again.
Checking back in with the number 43, Dave Hussar for Kraft Dinner Racing. Had some incidents a little bit earlier on, made an unscheduled pit stop. Now looking a bit to rebound. He's in 9th place currently on the racetrack.
As we watch on to see what Dave Hasser can do in that Kraft Dinner Racing P2 car, he is trying to see if he can get a little further up the field. He's not close enough to battle with the DDM Racing of Douglas Hintz right now, who's actually in a battle with Cheslock for Rebellion Racing, so keep an eye on that. As we see the race leader put Cheslock another lap down, as timing and scoring has updated. There is no battle between Cheslock and Douglas Hintz, as they have now separated by about 6 seconds.
Race leader still is Liam Rance for VRS Satellite Racing with 11 minutes to go. Nothing going on with the GTE field. Everybody spread out there. Pretty much same story with the LMP2s. As the race winds its way down, pit stops completely done. Off track goes the 67, a little bit too far off for the VRS Satellite Racing. Liam Rance slams into a couple of cones on the outside. Doesn't look like he has any of them stuck in. No, he is.
He's got the cone right there. That's going to cause some issues, as he might release the cone. Not yet. He's got to drop it some way on the track. He does have enough time to where he could let it go, as the cone is still underneath that Dallara P2, actually sunk in between that and the pavement. As they continue on, there it goes, finally cleared out from underneath him. Hopefully didn't cause too much damage to the underside of that P2 car.
And VRS also running their fuel a little bit tight, we're hearing from our race analyst James Andrew. They might need to be slowing it down just a tad to make sure they make it to the end on fuel. We'll see what happens with that number 67. Would be rather heartbreaking if they run out of fuel. They're about to put their main competitor, Scott McIntyre for TNT Racing Carbon, a lap down. They're only separated by now about 9 seconds up the road is Scott McIntyre.
Certainly is the case. Keep an eye on that, as Scott McIntyre is trying to see if he can stay on the lead lap, but it's going to be tough, because here comes Liam Rance dropping down the hammer here once again in the closing stages. Just under 10 minutes to go. In fact, ran a 1:11.10, a tenth faster than Scott McIntyre last time by.
VRS Satellite Racing still has the best lap of the race with the 1:08.68. Nobody even close to the ballpark. The only person about a tenth and a half behind on the best lap is Scott McIntyre for TNT Racing Carbon. Other than that, It's been a dominant day for VRS Satellite Racing as they continue to race on the racetrack. Time still winding down, 8.5 minutes to go. Just a handful of laps now left for the final minutes of the season, the iRacing Team Endurance Series.
Closing in on the end of a season full of excitements, full of great storylines, and also to some great championship winning teams. As you see, Kurt Poulter and the United Performance Racing Ferrari coming out of the final set of corners here. 8 minutes left to go for him, who's been running very consistently. Justin Hess may be the star of the show of this car, but Kurt Poulter, he does what he does best, bringing that car home in one piece and making sure that they take home the checkered flag. So a big round to Kurt Poulter as he works his way through the S's once again, and just pretty much all by his lonesome here in the closing stages.
These closing stages of the race, Taylor, can be some of the most anxiety-ridden portions, especially of an endurance race, because you want to try and maximize whatever you have left in the car. But the problem is, for a lot of these drivers, they're not close enough to anybody that they can race on the racetrack, so they need to try and gain as much as they can. And now it's 7 minutes to go. Liam Rance starting another lap, about a minute 11 per lap. You can go down to minute 10. Might only be looking at roughly about 6 more laps on the racetrack.
Certainly can be the case right now as we keep an eye on this battle, as Scott McIntyre is working through some lap traffic here, trying to see if he can find a way to at least stay on the lead lap before Liam Rance catches up to him right now, as right behind him is Leif Peterson hot on his tails. Of course, this is not a battle for position. Peterson is a lap behind that second place driver, Scott McIntyre. Leif Peterson trying to make sure he doesn't go 2 laps down before this race is over.
There's Scott McIntyre in TNT Racing Carbon working through the final corner on the racetrack. Has the 913 of Leif Peterson behind him on 2 completely separate laps right now. So Peterson 1 lap down, courtesy of your race leader Liam Rance. He sits in 4th place currently on the racetrack. And there's your leader Liam Rance down into the S's and right back uphill.
Great battle between these two drivers as they work their way through lap traffic. Here comes Liam Rance once again. Closing minutes here. 5.5 minutes to go. Stuck in lap traffic. Has to be careful. He has time to pick and choose his battles. He works past one of the P2 cars. Now around one of the Longhorn Racing Ferraris as he still tries to pull away.
Doing a great job of that pulling away as well. Gap now in between those two. Your 2 race leaders, about 1 minute and 3 seconds. Domination from Liam Rance here today, and the rest of the VRS Satellite Racing team as well. In that number 67, Rance gets to be the one to finish it off, but a great day for the entire team as we reach 5 minutes now inside. 5 minutes to go here from the virtual road Atlanta. Just about 5 or so laps remaining here in this race.
Just in about 5 laps or so, we're going to see what's going to happen here in the closing stages here. Will anyone have anything for one of the air competitors? There's no major battles on the track right now, but we do know mistakes have been known to happen in the closing stages of races. We'll see what happens. Who will survive here as 4.5 minutes left to go?
P8 battle in between Cheslock and Hussar for Rebellion Racing and Kraft Dinner Racing. P8 for LMP2. This battle on the racetrack within 4 minutes to go now in the race. The 3-car of Cheslock last time by 109.27. Dave Hussar a 110.14, but the gap now 0.3 of a second as they work their way down the straightaway into the chicane.
Here they go down the back straightaway heading towards turn 10. There you'll see Hasser work his way down through the field. Gets the pass completed over Cheslock as they work their way into the chicane of turn 10. Great battle between the two as Cheslock cannot seem to find a way to catch up to Hasser. Move Hasser up inside the 8th position.
And that is due to the struggles of Rebellion Racing that we have been seeing in the last half of this race. Pretty much after the pit stop, we have been seeing issues from Rebellion Racing. Definitely not what anybody wanted to see, especially the Rebellion Racing driver of Andrew Cheslock. But great news for Dave Hussar as he moves his way now up into the top 8 here today. Liam Rance for VRS Satellite Racing still out in front. He'll come across the start-finish line this time by. And I believe he'll be taking 3 laps to go here from the virtual Road Atlanta.
As we see the race leaders work their way through, or this battle for 8th position coming up right here. Down the back straightaway, Cheslock looks like he does not have anything for the driver of Dave Hasser. As we watch on to see, here comes Liam Rance. As we know, he has been in the most dominant car all season. It's originally been driven by David Williams, along with none other than Paul Oh My Darling, as we would say back in the GSRC racing days, as he was working his way down through the turn 10 section of the course, having a great run, actually catching up to the back bumper of Justin Tense. Or actually Kurt Poulter right now, who is just up in front of him.
What a race for a lot of drivers. And Adam, just taking a look, Liam Rance and VRS Satellite Racing with a great run today. Same thing with Kurt Poulter, United Performance Racing. The 2 points leaders for the 2 classes out in front right now. And Kurt Poulter, and they went right by each other. Liam Rance for VRS Satellite Racing just went right by the United Performance car of Kurt Poulter, the 2 points leaders. As this time by, VRS Satellite Racing's Liam Rance is going to take the white flag.
One more time. Here's the battle for 9th right now in the GTE class. It looks like with a Longhorn Racing, and then of course All Balls Racing. Paul Hamilton currently in the 9th spot. There you see the 78 of David Anderson behind the wheel of Longhorn Racing. Lone Star Ferrari, as they'll go side by side. Anderson to the inside, brakes, locks it up a little bit. That's going to be a problem right there. Give the position back to All Balls Racing.
Clock going to wind down as Liam Rance for the VRS Satellite Racing takes the white flag as he works up the S's. Clock expires to 0. This time by will be the final lap of the season for the iRacing Team Endurance Series powered by Champion Motorsports. Liam Rance going to put the capitalization on the season for VRS Satellite Racing, and Kurt Poulter looking to put the capitalization on the season for Unified Performance Sim Racing, as Liam Rance for VRS Satellite Racing brings his number 67 LMP2 into the final chicane.
Here they come down towards the final chicane for the final time. The streak will stay alive. The continuation of this team's domination is going to stand hold as they will come out of the final corner. VRS Satellite Racing's David William and Vance will take home the win and take home the championship. Here comes your GTE leaders, Kurt Poulter, Justin Hess, doing the same as they'll win the race and claim a championship.
And the GTE field. Same thing for Kurt Pultzer. Unified Performance Racing grabs the championship there. VRS Satellite Racing, Unified Performance Racing, your two champions for the iRacing Team Endurance Series, powered by Champion Motorsports.
And with that, we are going to take a commercial break, but when we come back, we will have the full field rundown as well as interviews with our podium finishers and champions. You are watching the iRacing Team Endurance Series powered by Champion Motorsports. Welcome back to the iRacing Team Endurance Series powered by Champion Motorsports from the virtual Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. The race has come to a close, the season has come to a close, and on top, VRS Satellite Racing claims the win, claims the championship. TNT Racing Carbon will come home second, followed by Pneumatic Motorsports Blue in third. Fourth goes to Imperial Motorsports Shake, followed by Pneumatic Motorsports Purple in fifth. Penguin RC Complex Simworks in 6th, followed by DDM Racing in 7th. Craft Dinner Racing comes home 8th, followed by Rebellion Racing in 9th. WWZ Red will come home in the 10th position. 11th, Jakester Racing. 12th is Hard Promise Racing. And rounding out your 13-car field in LMP2, ADRA Endurance.
Unified Performance Racing comes home as your winner of GTE today and the championship for GTE. SimHQ Motorsports 3 comes home in second place. Renault Alpine Racing in third. SimHQ Motorsports 2 in fourth, with Can-Am Canucks rounding out your top 5 for the GTE field. Last minute racing, Team Brake Fade, Can-Am Express rounding out the field there in the top 20 overall. All Balls Racing, Longhorn Racing, Lone Star, Triple R Racing, Longhorn Racing, MMTR, NGP Motorsports, and Team VVL Systems round out the 28 cars that took the green flag here at Road Atlanta.
And with that, we will now bring in our overall race winners, along with our champions, VRS Satellite Racing David Williams and Liam Rance. Gentlemen, congratulations on what I would have to say one word: dominating season.
Thank you, Taylor. Yeah, it's been a great season for us. Thanks to Liam for stepping up and stepping in for us last minute. Paul had to handle some other duties. He's actually flagging for IMSA at Mid-Ohio this weekend. So he's doing some fun stuff with the racing.
Certainly, it sounds like some fun stuff. But David, you had a very strong start, even after that penalty, fighting your way back up through the field. Tell us how that mentality to keep focused, knowing even though you had to serve this penalty, that you still had a car capable of winning.
Well, I knew that we had good pace, so my plan was to run the first 2 laps in the black flag so I could stretch out every bit of gap that I could so I could come out not too far behind. And that's just what I did. And then, we had good luck going through the field, so it was just a great day for us.
Well, before we let you go, let's talk to Liam right quick. Liam, how did you feel about getting behind the wheel and just showing the field a strong performance for you, since this is your first race of the season with the team?
Well, yeah, I just sort of finished off David's hard work, just jumped in the car. Had pretty little practice, to be honest, with other commitments on a different simulator over the weekend. And yeah, just jumped in, finished off David's hard work and brought it home.
Well, before we let you go, gentlemen, is there anyone you'd like to say thank you to?
I'd like to say thank you to VRS Satellite Racing for always helping us get ready for these races. Thanks again to Liam for stepping in. Thanks to you guys for putting on the broadcast. Thanks to CMS for putting together the series, and thanks to your sponsors, Penguin RC, Grid Finder, and Complex SimWorks for sponsoring this season. It's been a great time.
Of course, and gentlemen, that of course is your LMP2 winners and champions, VRS Satellite Racing, and Josh has caught up with our second place drivers in LMP2 class, the TNT Racing Carbon of Scott McIntyre as well. I think they might be ready, and Everett Paddock, who is also joining us.
Yeah, we'll get them here in the commentary booth. A great run for TNT Racing Carbon. First joined by Everett Paddock, who had the first stint in the car. Everett, welcome to the commentary box. How was that race from your perspective in the car?
The race went well. I mean, obviously, it was. You got to tip your hat to David and Liam. Those guys were very tough. Made up that stop and go, but all in all, our plan was to try to get out and get a good lead and hold on to it, and that worked out pretty well.
And this, of course, the last race of the season, just trying to put a exclamation point on the season. You're going to come home, looks like, above Pneumatic Motorsports Purple with that finish. So you'll be fourth in the point standings. How important is that for you to get another good finish there? 2 second-place finishes in a row to capitalize off on the season.
Great to have some momentum. You know, Scott and I worked on getting a little bit better at this car, and I think it showed in the last couple races.
Well, now transitioning over into the next season in 2022, you and your team, TNT Racing Carbon, is that where your focus is mainly going to go now, is the next season of this championship? And are you going to try and oust VRS Satellite Racing for the championship?
You know, that, boy, 2022, that's pretty far away, right? We'll see how it goes, but you know, right now I think our focus is going to be probably trying to get a little bit better at the Dallara here, but we'll see how it goes and discuss that amongst the team.
Well, thank you very much for joining us up here in the booth. Anybody else you would like to thank?
Make sure Scott gets a big shout out. You know, he is a little shy. I want to mention that he's a little timid when being interviewed, even on YouTube. Even though the guy streams the full race, talks the whole time. But anyway, Shep, I want to just thank Scott.
Thank you so much for joining us here in the commentary box. That was Everett Paddock for TNT Racing Carbon. Second place finishers with Scott McIntyre here in the LMP2 field. Transitioning back to Taylor Burris with James Stacy and Jason Lundy for Pneumatic Motorsports Blue. Third place finisher in LMP2.
Here with James Stacy, Jason Lundy. Gentlemen, a strong performance for you guys all race long, running in the top 5. Jason, let's start with you. You had probably one of the best drives also all race here, having a couple of great battles with Imperial Motorsports along with your sister car of the Pneumatic Motorsports Purple. Tell us how that race went for you.
Oh boy, the start opening stint was pretty intense. Made it through the start cleanly, but Christopher with the Imperial Motorsports car, he was all over me. We were all over each other, but just happy to make it out of that first stint alive. That was the goal, and then we decided to go off strategy a little bit. We ran a short first stint. We just wanted to get in some clean air and execute our race.
And Jason, let's get to you a little bit. You had some interesting strategy calls during the race. Your thoughts on how that played out? Of course, you had a podium finish, but was there any doubt or any concern about making it to the end?
No, we kind of planned backwards. So at the 35-minute mark, that was our whole goal, just to get to that, and we got to that. So with no concerns about fuel. I think our sister car was a little tighter, but we were counter strategy to them.
Well, before we let you go, gentlemen, and as we look ahead at 2022, anyone you would like to say thank you to?
Yeah, thanks. Shout out to our teammates, Robert and Jimmy, our other teammate who didn't race with us this season, Pete Hebron, and my co-driver, James. We all mesh really well together. We all work well together. So it's been a great run. And then shout out to, of course, David Anderson and Doug Atkinson for getting this whole series rolling. And to you guys as well. Nice job on the broadcast.
Of course, that is the Pneumatic Motorsports Blue team of Jason Lundy and James Stacy. And Joshua, you have caught up with our champions in GTE.
Yes, I have, with the Unified Performance Racing drivers Justin Hess and Kurt Poulter. Justin, we'll start with you. You started the day in the car to capitalize on the championship. How was that race from behind the wheel in the first stint?
It was fantastic. Car drove great. Setup was good. Just had a couple run-ins with traffic that weren't favorable, but managed to keep it in one piece and give a good car off to Kurt.
And Kurt, you took over that good car and a good lead as well in the GTE class. How difficult was it to keep that lead, or was it easy just running hot laps there until the checkered flag flew?
Justin handed over a great car and he built a great setup. It was easy to drive, and honestly, I just was kind of just running laps and maintaining a gap to P2 and trying to stay out of trouble with traffic.
With that, we'll go back to Justin here. Championship, of course, locked up. An undefeated season for you here in the GTE class. How difficult was it to keep that undefeated season and win 5 races in a row against some tough competitors?
Quite difficult. I think a large part of it was just, understanding the car and knowing the secrets of what helps it. It certainly wouldn't have happened without building the setup we had on the car.
And Kurt, obviously next year, bit of a time away, but the next season of this championship, are you going to try and go for 2 in a row and keep on that streak of undefeated race wins?
I think we will, yeah. I may talk Justin into switching cars up, but I don't know if I'll be able to persuade that to happen. But if not, yeah, we'll be back in the Ferrari.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us here in the commentary box. We'll start with Justin. Anybody else you would like to thank?
Just thanking CMS, Penguin RC, and Gridfinder and everyone that sponsored this series for putting it on. It's been a fun time.
And Kurt, anybody else you would like to thank?
Yeah, definitely guys at Enthusiast Auto Group, Evolve Range Solutions, and Vandalia Range and Armory. They help us along in real life and in sim, and it's great.
Well, thank you both so much for joining us here. Unified Performance Racing, your winners here today at Road Atlanta and your champions of the season here in the iRacing Team Endurance Series. Now transitioning over to second place, the number 56 for SimHQ Motorsports 3 here today at Road Atlanta. Standing by with Taylor Burris, Connor Denny, and Paul Hale.
Here with Connor Denny and Paul Hale. Gentlemen in the CMS team, you had a great race so far. Your thoughts on how the race went for you today?
Starting it out, it felt kind of rough as we just watched our sister car sort of walk away, and had a really, really good time holding off Drew behind us in the Can-Am Canucks Corvette. We just took what came to us and made some strategy calls that wound up making the second half for Paul's stint just work out better.
Well, one of the things also, Paul, you had a interesting battle towards the end trying to catch up to the Renault Alpine Racing team. Tell us your mentality going into that battle to try to catch up, even though there was some small mistakes happening for Paul or for that team.
Yeah, I mean, we knew they had some good pace, and towards the end of that stint, we were really putting some time on them. So it was just do good laps when we could, just try to avoid any incidents with traffic and get past people as quick as possible. And once we caught up to them, it was, it wasn't too bad getting past them, but we just had to keep our head down because we weren't sure if it was going to be a possibility to actually put that pass on or not.
Well, gentlemen, before we let you go, anyone you would like to say thank you to?
Big thanks to everyone over at the SimHQ Motorsports team for putting the teams together and fielding 3 great cars this season.
Gentlemen,
Yeah, likewise.
well, congratulations on your podium finish here this race, and we look forward to seeing you next year.
Thanks, hope to be back.
And we look forward to seeing you guys back. That is the SimHQ Motorsports 3 team of Paul Hale, Connor Denny, and Joshua. You've caught up with the final finishers in the podium, the Renault Alpine Racing team, Francois Bru, Hendrik de Zwart, and Jacques Chrissy.
Well, they are all joining me now here in the booth. We'll start with Jack Chrissy, who got the run started for Renault Alpine Racing here today. How was the race in the number 69 throughout the first stint?
It was pretty good. I mean, mostly we were just trying to deal with crazy traffic and trying to keep up with Justin. It's it's pretty hard. He's very quick and consistent, so any minor mistakes and you get out of draft here, you just drop back like a brick. So was just kind of hoping that he had some bad traffic luck, and I got lucky a couple times on that and was able to catch up with him, but was never able to hang on for the distance. So we had that one little minor off in the first, so we were losing a little bit, but was able to get in and get the quick repair. So first stint was pretty good, other than a little bit of hecticness.
Over to Francois Brou now, who took the car home for Renault Alpine Racing here today. How was the car through the second stint? Because we saw a lot more traffic and a little bit of a battle for second place between you and Paul Hale, and almost became a battle between you and Brian Van Buzicombe back there for P4.
I'm going to let the two talk, Hendrik, because I have a headache. I had a mechanical on my screen, and I'll let them talk because I'm not feeling well.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll take over for Francois. I mean, he had a real rough time there. I mean, basically the real life equivalent of just having oil all over your windshield in terms of a hardware issue where his screen was flickering, and me basically just driving by feel. So I mean, incredible performance from him to bring it home and basically salvaging third place. And honestly, really proud of what Renault Alpine Corvette has done this season. It's been a great time with Jack and Francois, and another great performance.
Hendrik, we'll finish it off with you. Top 5 in the points, a podium finish to round out the season to go with your other podium finishes in Le Mans and Monza. Are you looking forward to the 2022 season?
We are indeed. I mean, we need to have a little chat about it, but I figure we'll probably be back and stronger than ever, and maybe select a car that's not quite as down on performance as the Corvette on the Ferrari.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here. We'll start with Jack Chrissy. Anybody else you would like to thank?
I mostly just want to thank my teammates and for having a good time, and want to thank you guys for putting it on, and all the sponsors for helping us run this event. So,
Francois, anybody you want to thank before we send you out?
I'm going to thank you guys for that great series and all the nice broadcast, and hopefully I'll be back next time and fix all my issues. Thank you, guys.
And Hendrik, anybody else you would like to thank before we send you off?
Yeah, thanks again. I mean, another thanks to CMS. Thanks to you guys in the booth for putting on a great show. And then I was actually unfortunately out today because I was at a field hockey tournament. So shout out to my team as well.
Well, thank you all very much for joining us here in the booth. That was Renault Alpine Racing P3 finishers here today at Road Atlanta. Sending it back to Taylor Burris as we conclude out our post-race show.
And as we come to a close here, Joshua, it is time that we say thank you to 3 wonderful sponsors, first and foremost. We cannot do it enough without Penguin RC Simulations, Complex SimWorks, and Grid Finder. Of course, without them, we would not have been able to put on these great races that we've seen over all this period of time. And it's kind of bittersweet because, Josh, we don't come back till January 9th. For 2022, for the first round of the season at Daytona. So it's going to be a very interesting to see what will happen in between now and then. And also, there's going to be support race series for this series, as well as they'll be utilizing the Porsche 911 GT3 cars for a support single make series for the race. But with that, for all of those amazing partners, for, of course, the entire Champions Motorsports team of Doug Atkinson, along with none other than James Andrew, and, of course, for all of us here in the booth, Ryan Bauer with cameras provided by Dougie Beard, Joshua Lee, my co-host, myself, Taylor Burris. Thank you all for watching this entire inaugural season of the iRacing Team Endurance Series, but we will be back to kick it off on the new year when we return in 2022 on January 9th. Thank you all for tuning into this race as we kick off and wait for 2022.